Valhalla is one of the top 3 training schools for hunters in Korea, where thousands of applicants flock every year, dreaming of bearing her name. There are 500 people competing for one place, but only 150 of them are able to graduate from the academy. The entrance examination begins with the placement, where participants fight in pairs in closed rooms under the supervision of the highest-ranking instructor, Lee Sang-cheol. This year, he noticed an unusually large crowd of spectators. Yoo Min-jun, the heir to the Yushin family, one of the 5 great families of Korea, approached him. Lee Sang-cheol, surprised, asked if the heir had come only for the sake of his niece. Yoo Min-jun confirmed that he came to watch over Yoo So-yeon, who the family has high hopes for. Yoo So-yeon is the genius of the Yushin family. At the age of 10, she was able to freely wield mana at the level of a high school student. At 13, she created her own sword with mana. And by the age of 16, she had caught up with the leaders of the family, becoming their undisputed leader. Lee Sang-cheol, who was familiar with her file, asked if there was anything else. Yoo Min-jun revealed that So-yeon is rumored to be able to interact with the Yushin family's patron constellation, the Sword God. The instructor, amazed, asked if this was true. Yoo Min-jun confirmed, explaining that this is why so much is expected of her. The 5 great families of Korea are associated with patron constellations. Yushin is the god of the sword. Changsan is the holy spear. Choijin is the king of Tao. Osun is the king of fist fighting. Dojin is the god of bow. These constellations bestow special talents upon family members that are different from the usual blessings of hunters. Direct communication with a constellation through a contract is rare, and if So-yeon is capable of this, she is truly a genius. Yoo Min-jun asked how So-yeon was doing on the exam. Lee Sang-cheol replied that she hadn't started yet, but the fight was about to start, in about 30 seconds. The heir asked to watch her, but the instructor suggested that he go down to the site himself, jokingly noting that Yoo Min-jun would have to make his way through the crowd of scouts and reporters. The heir, preferring comfort, asked to put the fight on the screen. Lee Sang-cheol, interested, agreed, and they began to watch the duel up close. On the court, Yoo So-yeon was preparing for her fight against Kim Joo-hyuk. Both appeared calm, but the instructor noticed that her opponent had no fighting spirit, suggesting that he was mentally broken after learning of her reputation. Lee Sang-cheol was confident that the fight would end quickly. As the countdown began, So-yeon attacked, displaying refined swordsmanship and exceptional mana control for her age. However, Kim Joo-hyuk knocked her down with one punch, shocking the audience. Kim Joo-hyuk was declared the winner. He looked around the crowd and muttered that everyone here was too weak, and wondered if this was really the future in 300 years. Memories surfaced in his mind. 300 years ago, he was Kim Hyun-oh, the god of martial arts, fighting in the Tower of Destruction against Boss Barch. That fight was epic. It was Kim Hyun-oh who delivered the decisive kick, receiving the victory notification, stopping the decay of the world. But the tower began to collapse, and he, exhausted, did not have time to get out. Tired of the life of a hunter, started in childhood for the sake of money and recognition, he regretted that he did not call students. Their help could have changed the outcome, but against Barch, they would have died. Losing heart, he died, but woke up in the hospital in the body of 17-year-old Kim Joo-hyuk, 3 centuries after the tower fell. His new body was weaker, but the experience and knowledge of the god of martial arts remained. Joo-hyuk decided that he could live in luxury if he adapted to his body. However, a translucent window informed that in 5 years, the Tower of Destruction would reappear. Enraged, he called Barch a scoundrel, regretting that he had not destroyed him completely. Having decided to destroy the tower forever, he received another notification. His weapons and memories were on the 3rd floor of the 5th room of Valhalla. He went to Valhalla unsure whether to participate in the academy competition. On the fourth day of the exams, the venue was packed with representatives from all 5 families, including newcomer Kim Joo-hyuk. His opponent was Oh Se-hyuk, the eldest son of the Osun family. After learning that Joo-hyuk had defeated So-yeon, Oh Se-hyuk decided that eliminating him would improve his chances. As the countdown began, he promised to quickly knock out the enemy. Joo-hyuk mockingly ordered them to roll away. Oh Se-hyuk, the 17-year-old eldest son of the Osun family, was known for his exceptional physical build. He did not excel in literature, strategy, or martial arts, but his natural physical strength, enhanced by mana, grew exponentially even with minimal training. His body, which required no effort to improve, made him a genius in the eyes of the Osun family, whose patron constellation was the king of fist fighting. Enraged by Kim Joo-hyuk's words, Oh Se-hyuk attacked with his fists. Kim Joo-hyuk, remaining calm, understood that he would not win in a direct physical confrontation with such an opponent. However, his experience and martial arts skills gave him an advantage. Dodging the powerful blows, he carefully watched Oh Se-hyuk's movements, waiting for the moment to counterattack. With just one precise blow, he knocked his opponent to the ground, leaving the spectators and jury in shock. The instructors and judges could not believe that Oh Se-hyuk, with his physical strength, was defeated so easily. The head of the Osun family, who was present in the stands, was furious, calling the judges ignorant bastards for finding Kim Joo-hyuk's technique simple. Oh Se-hyuk's father reflected that his son had never sought to learn martial arts, relying only on his physical strength, which allowed him to easily defeat his peers. In this fight, emotions got the better of him, and Oh Se-hyuk, wanting to quickly end the fight, used a magical technique that was rare for him. However, Kim Joo-hyuk, slightly tilting his head, dodged, shifting his center of gravity faster than his opponent. Chief Osung realized that Kim Joo-hyuk had thought out a plan in advance, which was a testament to his monstrous talent. He decided that he would bring this newcomer into his family at any cost, realizing that not all viewers were ignorant and many had already appreciated Kim Joo-hyuk's potential. Hyuk, reflecting on the fight, noted that Oh Se-hyuk was not in tune with his mana, which became his weakness. Although his new body is weaker than before, his experience as a god of martial arts is enough that he has no problem hunting monsters or becoming a hunter. The next fight pitted Kim Joo-hyuk against Choi Arin, the second daughter of the Choi Jin family, whose patron constellation was King Dao. Arin, a 17-year-old girl with a huge army of fans, irritated Kim Joo-hyuk. He did not understand why she, a peer, was called Nuna, as a respectful address for an older sister. It was the final of the ranking matches, and the tension was rising. Arin, unlike her previous opponents, did not attack first, carefully analyzing the situation. Kim Joo-hyuk, appreciating her restraint, decided that she was smarter than So-yeon and Oh Se-hyuk, and wondered whether he should use all his strength. Coming closer, he provoked Arin to attack. She used the ability to change, unique to the Choi Jin family, which she mastered at the age of 17, an incredible achievement. Fans, delighted, considered the new generation of the 5 families to be exceptional. Arin concentrated her mana and swung her blade at the perfect moment, but Kim Joo-hyuk instantly appeared behind her. He noted mockingly that if she gave away her intentions with her eyes, it would be easy to avoid them. Arin retreated and blocked his blow with her blade, but Kim Joo-hyuk felt that her defense was not perfect, as her posture was slightly crooked. He motioned for her to dodge the next blow, and, delivering a precise blow, knocked her to the ground. After winning, Kim Joo-hyuk thought something about her attack was strange, but he brushed it off because the victory was his. He took first place in the ranking. As he left the academy, he encountered a crowd of journalists who peppered him with questions about his experience and victories. Enraged, he barked at them to leave, not wanting to waste time on empty talk. His name was all over the posts discussing his incredible victories in the entrance exams of Valhalla, an elite academy with a centuries-old history that trains hunters. Accepted into the first year, he was greeted with applause, but he himself felt only boredom. The students stared at him, whispering among themselves, and Kim Joo-hyuk, the reincarnation of the martial arts god Kim Hyun-oh, wondered if his performance yesterday had really stood out that much. Remembering the notice to retrieve his weapons and memories from the third floor of the fifth room of Valhalla, he decided that it would be a simple matter of getting in and out. However, his thoughts were interrupted by the first day of school. Kim Joo-hyuk headed to the virtual combat simulation classroom where he was met by instructor Kim Lee-gong, a 24-year-old former head of the Valhalla instructors from the Choi Jin family. There were already familiar faces in the classroom: Soyeon from the Yushin family, Oh Se-hyuk from the Osun family, and Choi Arin from the Choi Jin family, all representatives of great families whose patron constellations granted them exceptional abilities. Ligon, noticing them, grabbed his head. He was told that the distribution into classes was random, but how did all the geniuses end up in one place? When he saw Kim Joo-hyuk, he mentally called him a bastard and realized that this year would be hard. Nevertheless, maintaining his professionalism, he introduced himself as their personal instructor and announced the start of the lesson. By pressing the button, Ligon activated the simulation, and the class was instantly transported into a virtual space. Kim Joo-hyuk, amazed by the technology that he had not seen 300 years ago, became wary. Ligon decided to add some bloodthirstiness to the lesson to test the newcomers. Virtual orcs and goblins, about 100 monsters, attacked them. The students, protected by a magical barrier, froze. Most had only seen monsters in books. Ligon, noticing Kim Joo-hyuk's calmness, called him and offered to deal with the monsters alone, hoping to curb his ego. He believed that the newcomer, like the others, would be scared when faced with real opponents. Kim Joo-hyuk chuckled and asked if Ligon meant the monsters outside the dome. He noticed that the instructor was clearly trying to test him and asked if there was a reward for such a task. Ligon, surprised by his audacity, replied that there was no prize, but offered to discuss the terms. Kim Joo-hyuk, continuing to tease him, asked what Lee-gong was willing to bet on his failure. The instructor, slightly irritated, promised to fulfill any wish within his authority if Kim Joo-hyuk succeeded. The main character agreed, but on one condition: he needed a sword. Ligon, stunned that he wasn't going to fight with his bare hands, exhaled and handed him his blade. Kim Joo-hyuk stepped outside the barrier and prepared for battle. Monsters that were indistinguishable from real ones rushed at him, but he, relying on the experience of the god of martial arts, was ready to attack. It had been 100 years since he had held a sword, but his skill had not faded. During the era of chaos caused by monsters, he used any weapon at hand, but the sword was always special to him. An orc flew up from behind, but Kim Joo-hyuk easily dodged it, noting the predictability of these NPCs' behavior. For him, accustomed to real battles, it was just a high-quality fake. He cut down the monsters with ease, as if the sword Ligon had lent him was itself attracting enemies. Instructor Ligon watched and was amazed. There was no mana or enchantment in the blade, yet Kim Joo-hyuk handled it as if the weapon was an extension of his body. Oh Se-hyuk and Choi Arin, standing behind the barrier, called it crazy, not believing their eyes. After the battle, having destroyed all the monsters, Kim Joo-hyuk demanded that Ligon fulfill his promise to give him access to the constellation room on the third floor of the fifth room, where his weapons and memories are kept. Ligon, impressed but keeping his face, concluded the lesson by declaring that the first lesson was over and sent the students to rest in the dorm. Kim Joo-hyuk, tired from the long lesson, thought that this was not a lesson, but a marathon. He decided to take his things and leave as soon as possible. The lesson, although boring, gave him useful information. He learned that constellations was a term for those who, through tremendous concentrations of luck, became gods. They are connected to hunters through sacred relics, giving them power. Valhalla, the third largest academy in the world, houses many such reliquaries. The rest, fencing and tactics against monsters, seemed weak to him. He decided that he would take up martial arts seriously in order to prepare for the return of the Tower of Destruction. As he walked towards the dorm, Kim Joo-hyuk noticed Choi Aaron behind him. Meanwhile, in the teacher's room, Ligun complained to Lee Sang-cheol that the day had been more ridiculous than difficult. He created 120 monsters in the simulation, but the newbie, who had never encountered real enemies, killed them without any effort. Lee Sang-cheol, who checked Kim Joo-hyuk's background, confirmed that he was an orphan from a dangerous area with no notable history. There is no chance of falsification. No one would create such a fuss at the entrance exams in order to get into Valhalla. Ligun guessed that Kim Joo-hyuk wanted to enter the constellation room. Lee Sang-cheol, who brought him to the academy, noted that the first floor was open to everyone, and access to the fifth floor could be obtained through the director. He saw no problem with the newcomer getting in early. Ligun expressed his concern that there were 3 geniuses from great families in his class, So-yeon, Oh-se-yuk, and Arin, and it would be difficult to control them together with Kim Joo-hyuk. Lee Sang-cheol mentioned that the other class was assigned to Rockdil Ventric, an exchange student from the British Ventric family who was expelled for his misbehavior. This calmed Ligun down a little. The situation was not as bad as it seemed. Kim Joo-hyuk stopped and asked Aaron what she wanted. She, embarrassed, asked to be taught fencing. Aaron insisted and asked him again, but Kim Joo-hyuk firmly repeated that he didn't want to do it and told her to leave him alone. He saw no point in teaching others, especially since his new body, while better than he expected, had no magical abilities and mana control was difficult. Aaron, silently watching him leave, remained standing, not losing her determination. Later, while heading to class, Kim Joo-hyuk ran into Rockdil Ventric, an exchange student from the British Ventric family, and his maid Yuria de Felix. Rockdil introduced himself with a smirk and got straight to the point, inviting Kim Joo-hyuk to become stronger by joining him. He explained that the Ventric family, one of the most influential in Europe, possessed a unique relic, a beaked mask associated with a constellation of Class S or higher. Unlike other families, where the constellations choose the guardians, the Ventrics make contracts directly with family members, regardless of their origin. This gives even the side branches equal power with the main line. Rockdil, a member of a collateral branch, was expelled from the British Academy for his antics, but his arrogance remained undiminished. He believed that he would always get what he wanted thanks to his family's influence, and decided to recruit Kim Joo-hyuk, whose exploits in the entrance exams had attracted attention. Kim Joo-hyuk, unimpressed, called Rockdil an idiot, saying that his show-off was uninteresting. Rockdil, enraged, called him an ignorant and filthy brat, and started shouting, but they were interrupted by instructor Lee Sang-cheol. He reminded that Valhalla is not a British academy, and here, regardless of family influence, everyone obeys the rules. Rockdil, angrily throwing out that they would meet again, turned around and left. Kim Joo-hyuk was angry as he returned to the dorm. The day was wasted. He didn't learn anything new about the constellation room, and instead he ran into an idiot like Rockdil. He also noticed that scouts and reporters crowding around the academy were using students and faculty to keep tabs on him. While wondering if he had turned them down too harshly, he saw Aaron again, who, without losing her persistence, once again asked him to teach her fencing. Kim Joo-hyuk, after asking irritably if yesterday's refusal wasn't enough, continued on his way, not wanting to continue the conversation. Meanwhile, In the upper-class room of the Valhalla dormitory, Rockdil Ventric, seething with anger, smashed a lamp. He couldn't accept that a worthless orphan like Kim Ju-hyuk dared to humiliate him. In a rage, he ordered Uriah de Felix to contact a certain Dizer to deal with the newcomer. Rockdil Ventric, seething with anger after being humiliated by Kim Ju-hyuk, attacked his maid, Uriah de Felix. Grabbing her by the hair, he roughly ordered her to answer when he spoke to her and threatened to kick her out of the Ventric family, reminding her that she was no longer the eldest daughter of the palace family. Uriah, having fallen to the floor, remained silent, refusing to obey. Rockdil wasted no time in repeating the order. Contact Dizer to deal with Kim Ju-hyuk and tell the son of the Rise family, a second grader, that Ventric wanted to see him. Meanwhile, in his dorm room, Kim Ju-hyuk breathed heavily and thought about the weakness of his new body. It couldn't extract even a grain of magic, which irritated him beyond belief. His thoughts were interrupted by the image of Choi Aran, who persistently pursued him all the way to the dorm. Turning around abruptly, he asked how long she intended to follow him around. Aran, not giving up, again asked to teach her fencing. Annoyed, Kim Ju-hyuk decided to discourage her by naming the price for the lesson, 10 million won. Aran, lowering her head, remained silent, and he, deciding that she could not allow herself to do this, moved on. However, the girl stopped him, asking him to give her his phone number so she could write down his number and transfer the money. To his surprise, a transfer for 100 million won arrived on his phone. Aran, looking at him, asked if he would teach her now. Kim Ju-hyuk, stunned, refused, rejecting the transfer. He stated that he did not want to reveal his secrets, and money meant nothing to him. His goal is to find the relics in the constellation room, and no amount of money will distract him. Having decided to take action, Kim Ju-hyuk waited until nightfall and set out to explore the territory of Valhalla. Even before joining, he studied the academy and discovered that the records he had hidden 300 years ago had been partially destroyed. According to his calculations, no more than 3 or 4 caches remain, and all of them are probably located in the Valhalla Mountains. Under cover of night, he began his search, using the last of his mana to feel the magic-sensitive marble. His body, weak and having difficulty controlling mana, made the task difficult, but he still sensed the location of the first recording. Digging turned out to be difficult. Kim Ju-hyuk, cursing his body, regretted that he had not buried the cache more easily 300 years ago. Back then, during the destruction of the tower, the world was on the brink of destruction, and he had no choice but to hide his wealth. By morning, after exhausting work, he found the hiding place. Having found the keyhole, he realized that an ordinary key would not fit. By concentrating his mana, he created a magical thread, forming it into a key. Having opened the passage, Kim Ju-hyuk went down into the secret room and froze, seeing mountains of gold and other treasures. He was pleased. Everything was intact. Kim Ju-hyuk took one of the stones and poured some mana into it, and his body was enveloped in magical energy, as expected from artifacts overflowing with power. As he pondered whether to leave the gold or take the more compact jewels, he regretted his fatigue. Several swings of the shovel had exhausted his weak body. He decided that money was no longer an issue and focused on finding the constellation room, where his weapons and memories were kept. During the next class, Kim Ju-hyuk noticed Choi Aran sitting at his desk. She once again asked to be taught fencing. Angered, he asked why she was so persistent. Since her Choi-jin family, under the patronage of the constellation King Dao, was famous for its professional fencing, Aran replied that she had never seen anyone wield a blade better than him. Kim Ju-hyuk, in disbelief, assumed that the head of her family was probably superior to him. But their conversation was interrupted by instructor Kim Lee-gun. He called Kim Ju-hyuk to the teacher's room, mentioning his request for the constellation room. Intrigued, Kim Ju-hyuk immediately agreed to go. Aaron touched him on the shoulder and apologized. But he relented and suggested that she come to the training ground tomorrow at 6 a.m. if she still wanted to study. Aaron, delighted, promised to be there. In the teacher's room, Ligun reported that Kim Ju-hyuk was allowed to visit the constellation room on the basement floor. But only the first floor was open. The rest were off-limits. Kim Ju-hyuk clarified when he can go there. Ligun, confident that Kim Ju-hyuk would not make a scene over the restrictions, agreed. In the evening, he took him to the room of the constellations, which was guarded more strictly than the main gates of Valhalla. Ligun explained that the Academy, one of the 3 greatest in the world, houses constellation relics surrounded by powerful magical protection. The walls are saturated with mana, and only the main entrance is free of shackles. Kim Ju-hyuk asked what would happen if he went to the second floor despite the ban. Ligun replied that he would not be called a criminal, but would be expelled as soon as possible. Moreover, the magic of the constellations on the upper floors is so powerful that his mind cannot withstand contact. Kim Ju-hyuk, after thinking about it, realized that it was not worth the risk, but his goal, the 3rd floor, for which he entered Valhalla. Ligun, surprised by his question, suspected something was wrong, but decided that the newcomer would not violate the ban. He gave him 30 minutes and told him to come back. After going down to the basement, Kim Ju-hyuk noticed that the stairs were endless, and the place resembled a prison. He was sure that the constellation room was on the 1st floor, but it didn't look that significant. Suddenly, a notification informed him that the conditions were met, and he was transported to an unknown space. Barsh, the boss of the Tower of Destruction he fought 300 years ago, appeared before him. Overwhelmed by the reunion, Kim Ju-hyuk wasted no time in jumping up and punching Barshi in the jaw, sarcastically stating that he was glad to see him. Kim Ju-hyuk, who found himself in the subspace of the constellation room, came face to face with Barcha, the boss of the Tower of Destruction, whom he fought 300 years ago. The demon tried to calm him down and talk to him, but Kim Ju-hyuk, burning with anger, did not listen, continuing to hit him and shouting for him to finally die. He beat Barch until he fell to the ground. Kim Ju-hyuk said that he doesn't solve problems with his fists, but not smashing the demon's face in would be a stupid waste. He blamed Barch for the ruined future, for the wealth and time spent on teaching students. Barch, trying to explain, said that this place, an imaginary world, a subspace of a sacred relic, his real body disappeared 300 years ago, and before Kim Ju-hyuk, there is only an incarnation. Hearing that Barcha had become a constellation, Kim Ju-hyuk became even more angry and hit him again. Time was running out, and when security began to check him with a metal detector, Ligun asked him if he had done anything strange. Kim Ju-hyuk, remaining calm, replied that he had simply looked around and had not gone down any further, knowing that he would have gone crazy otherwise. Ligun smiled and sent him back to the dormitory. As he walked home, Kim Ju-hyuk thought about the meeting. He didn't care about Barch's status as a constellation, but he demanded to know who created the translucent notification window. The demon claimed that he knew nothing, and Kim Ju-hyuk, not believing it, threatened to beat him again. Barch admitted that he received a notification to contact the reincarnated Kim Ju-hyuk and return his memories. He assumed that the one behind this was the one who made him king of the Tower of Destruction, but his own memories of this were erased. Kim Ju-hyuk asked what was in his notice. Barch replied that it had ordered him to find weapons and memories, but part of the text was censored and unreadable. Kim Ju-hyuk, confident that he remembered everything about the tower, wondered, if he had already found the weapon, why hadn't his memories returned? Barch explained that the subspace was the inner world of the 4 sacred swords that had become relics. One of them, belonging to Barsha, made him a constellation. Kim Ju-hyuk, shocked, realized that his own village sword had become a relic, with a constellation now residing within it. He wanted to destroy Barch and forget about him, but, concentrating his power, he summoned a sword in his hand. Realizing that his weakness would not prevent him from completing the mission, he realized Barch, the former king of the tower, could not be stopped without supervision. The new quest required this sword, and there was no turning back. On his way home, Kim Joo-hyuk encountered strangers. Lyric Sunrise, the eldest son of the Sunrise family and a second-year student, asked if he was the same Kim Joo-hyuk who won first place in the entrance exam. His subordinate, a bully, volunteered to beat up Kim Joo-hyuk, assuring him that the difference between the first and second years was colossal. Kim Joo-hyuk, without wasting any time, hit him back, shut him up, and told him to attack, preparing for another fight. The bully, having received a powerful blow to the stomach from Kim Joo-hyuk, flew back, badly beaten. His comrades, observing, thought he was crazy. Meanwhile, Rockdale Ventric, negotiating with Lyric Sunrise, the eldest son of the Sunrise family, promised not to remain in debt for help. He wanted to take care of a first-year student who had placed first in the entrance exam. Rockdale didn't care if he used a weapon, he would still clean up after him. Lyric agreed to the deal and, leaving the room, thought, no matter what place a newbie occupies among the first years, he still won't be able to cope with the seniors. In Valhalla, second-year students, unlike first years, make contracts with constellations in the Constellation Room, becoming contractors. This gives them access to the power of the constellations, which makes them completely different from newcomers. Kim Joo-hyuk, who did not belong to a great family, did not have such a privilege, and Lyric thought that it would be easy to defeat him. However, the battle showed otherwise. Lyric, watching his subordinate fall, froze in shock. Another team member, deciding to help, rushed at Kim Joo-hyuk with a knife, but he fought him off without difficulty. Sunrise's eldest son couldn't believe it. The first year was cutting down his people one by one. Kim Joo-hyuk's swordplay looked deceptively simple, but his opponents flew away as if they were not a threat. Lyric, trying to inspire the team, shouted that this was just a newbie and they had to defeat him. Taking a fighting stance himself, he prepared for battle. But Kim Joo-hyuk threw him back several meters with one light punch to the chest. Lyric, having fallen to the ground, could not understand how the enemy had gotten so close. Kim Joo-hyuk woke him up and demanded an answer. Who was he, and why did he attack? Lyric, still in shock, muttered that they only wanted to humble the first year who took first place. Kim Joo-hyuk got angry and ordered not to tell fairy tales. He called their actions solidarity of punks, and, having ordered them to leave after the fight, left. Lyric, trying to save face, shouted that the newcomer would not be able to study peacefully after such an incident. If word spreads about how a first year had beaten the seniors, the shame would fall on them, not on him. He advised Kim Joo-hyuk to think about his own well-being if he did not want to have problems with his studies. Kim Joo-hyuk didn't care. He thought it was the attackers who should be ashamed, not him. Meanwhile, Rockdale Ventric, checking his phone in anticipation of a call, received a message from Lyric. He, clearly irritated, declared that he was washing his hands of this idea. The plan failed, and Rockdale, realizing that Kim Joo-hyuk was stronger than expected, began to think about his next move to subdue the unyielding newcomer. Rockdale cited the visible marks of beatings as a pretext and promised to transfer the promised amount, as well as provide funding from the Ventric family. Lyric, however, refused, stating that no amount of money would bring back his lost pride. Furious, he hung up. Rockdale, furiously smashing the phone, asked Yuria de Felix if she had contacted Dizer. She confirmed that she had informed him about a personal meeting, but Dizer, being far away, would not arrive immediately. At this time in Mexico, at the Aripia Academy, Dizer received a message from Rockdale. When he learned that he had to deal with Kim Joo-hyuk, he smirked. After being expelled, he had no source of income left, and this task promised a generous reward. Dicer agreed to go to Korea. The next day at 6 p.m., Kim Joo-hyuk arrived at the Valhalla Training Hall, amazed by its size. He thought that the school was really not small, and he wanted to run around the hall. But he was interrupted by the voice of Barsh, the demon sealed in his sword. He explained that he had become an artifact and was located within the academy. Kim Joo-hyuk, surprised that the demon was still there, threatened to beat him again. But Barsh assured him that he had left a copy in the constellation room to avoid suspicion. He added that 300 years ago, weakened, he still created this copy, although he does not remember how he learned to do this. Choi Arin entered the hall, excited about the start of training. She was looking forward to fencing lessons, but Kim Joo-hyuk refused, saying that he would start by increasing her stamina. Arin, not understanding why this was necessary, received an explanation. Endurance improves mana control and physical qualities. He criticized the new generation's training methods, which focused on mana at the expense of physical fitness. Even Arin, with her high mana concentration, was clearly inferior in terms of endurance. They started with stretching and push-ups. The girl quickly got tired, but Kim Joo-hyuk told her to get up. There was a 20-kilometer race ahead. Arin, barely able to cope, continued, and he wondered whether her body could withstand such stress. Her physique, in his opinion, was suitable for training, but it would take time. During the lesson, the teacher Lilia, a specialist in large-sized monsters, announced a written test. She recalled that at the beginning of the year, she warned about the need to study the material independently. The test tested knowledge of behavior when encountering monsters and did not affect the overall score, but the results will determine the next lesson in the simulation room. After passing the test, Lilia warned that the next lesson would be more difficult. Barsh, communicating with Kim Joo-hyuk through the sword, asked if he was sure of his answers. The demon could hear his thoughts connected to him, so they could communicate mentally, and doubted the correctness of the answers. Kim Joo-hyuk replied that he wrote the way he would have answered 300 years ago. In the teacher's room, Lilia, while checking the work, crumpled Kim Joo-hyuk's sheet in anger, calling his answers nonsense. She couldn't believe that anyone would dare to write like that, and her anger foreshadowed trouble for the newcomer in the next lesson. A week later, in the virtual combat simulation class, teacher Lilia announced that the tests written in the previous lesson had been checked. Most of the students passed, but she called Kim Joo-hyuk to explain his answers, which did not score any points. The first question was about stone goblins, and he replied that he needed to rip open the belly. Second, how to deal with 8 goblins in the jungle. He wrote that those who attack first should be hit with a couple of precise blows, sending them to hell. Lily, indignant, called his answers frivolous. Stone goblins with rank B+ are immune to normal swords, and ripping open the belly is absurd. She gave him a chance to prove his point in practice by summoning a single stone goblin into the simulation. Kim Joo-hyuk, taking an ordinary sword, confidently began the fight. With one blow to the stomach, he killed the monster, without magic, shocking everyone. Lily, shocked, asked how he did it. He replied that he simply ripped open his belly, as he wrote. The teacher, still confused, noted that this required a contractor rank A, but he managed without magic. Moving on to the second question, she created a cave with 8 goblins known for their uncontrollable aggression. A mistake in combat could cause them to become inspired, making it nearly impossible to fight alone. Lilia heard that Kim Joo-hyuk was slow with his sword, but he hit the first goblin in the head and the second in the chest, destroying them without allowing the others to appear. The next day, at the Valhalla Training Hall, Kim Joo-hyuk wore down Choi Arin, wearing down her stamina. The girl, exhausted to the limit, could not run any longer. The protagonist asked if she had never trained so intensively in her clan since it was so hard for her. Arin explained that she usually spared herself, relying on the magical power of the constellation. Kim Joo-hyuk countered, "Choosing mana over stamina is risky. What will she do in a dungeon where magic is limited, or if her mana runs out? Constellations will not give physical strength." He asked her if she thought his exercises would help. Aaron agreed, because he himself said that fencing would begin with endurance. The protagonist clarified that they would not stop there and told her to prepare for tomorrow's lesson at the academy. Aaron asked if he was leaving, but he decided to make another approach. She promised to meet later, and Kim Joo-hyuk continued training. The voice of Barsh, sealed in the sword, rang out in his head. The demon noticed that Aaron was doing all the exercises without complaint, and asked why he was teaching her. The protagonist replied that she was too intrusive, and Barchi asked if he had shown her his fencing skills. Kim Joo-hyuk said no, but she saw enough in class and still wanted to learn. Demon found it interesting. Oh Se-hyuk, who had been training nearby, entered the hall. Kim Joo-hyuk asked how long he had been there. Oh Se-hyuk replied that he had been training since he entered the school, apologized, and walked away. The protagonist thought, Oh Se-hyuk's endurance may be related to his physiology, but he is clearly smarter than those who are fixated on mana. He asked Barcha why constellations were needed at all. The demon replied that, being a constellation, he had been isolated for 300 years and knew nothing about others. He is confident that the information will appear after completing the quest, returning the weapon and memories. The new notification pointed to the third underground floor of the Constellation Room and an additional condition: the Eye of Valhalla, of the great forest of Madagaya Ron's house, requiring the heavenly sword. Kim Joo-hyuk remembered that they visited this place in the first semester. Without the quest, he would have taken his things long ago, but now he needs to act secretly. Barch was surprised. After a fight with hooligans, he wanted to be invisible? He hoped that the quest would reveal the secrets of reincarnation. In London, at the Ventrick family mansion, Vice Head Adelia Ventrick listened to a servant about a labyrinth on the outskirts of Reading. She praised the work and asked if there was any news. The servant said that he had met a strong man from the ruined Robert clan and 2 contractors whom he wanted to recruit. Adelia ordered their potential to be assessed and sent to her. She also learned that Rockdill Ventrick had done something wrong again by inviting Dizer to Korea, which made her worried. When they learned that he had contacted Dizer, they became alarmed. Dizer, a troubled outcast, killed 5 people at an English academy between the ages of 12 and 19, using the Ventrick name. At the age of 20, he was exiled and went into hiding. Adelia ordered to keep an eye on Rockdill and warn him that if he was caught in contact with Dizer, he would be exiled. She thought, power corrupts people like Rockdill, and everything belongs to her, looking at the guardian constellation in the frame. During the lecture, Kim Joo-hyuk reflected on his body. The training has strengthened him, increasing his mana control, but he is still weak compared to his previous life. His Qi circulation was hampered by his low mana levels, and his physical condition left much to be desired. Suddenly, Soyeon from the Yushin family slipped him a note. In it, she simply said hello. Ligon announced that students could leave the academy on the weekend by submitting a statement. Kim Joo-hyuk, overjoyed, decided to go to the market. Soyeon approached again, but he, calling her crazy for mooing, demanded that she speak faster. She, angry, explained that she had seen him kill a stone goblin with a normal sword without magic, and wanted to know how he did it. Lilia, the teacher, ran up with the same question. She thought monsters were killed one way, but he showed her another. Lilia offered to become her assistant for a joint work on monsters, but he refused, citing a trip. Left alone, Soyeon exhaled, muttering that it didn't matter. The next day, the protagonist went to the market, preparing for the next step in his search for the heavenly sword. In the Valhalla dorm, Kim Joo-hyuk sat in his room, scrolling through his phone, searching for information about the place he was going to. The demon Barcha, sealed in his sword, asked what he was looking for. The protagonist explained that he was trying to find a forum to sell the treasures from his stash. He came across a description of a black market where, after paying an entry fee, one could trade any valuables, including artifacts. Despite its reputation as a place teeming with villains and swindlers, the market existed thanks to a mysterious figure, the Hidden Lord, one of the Guardian constellations. This made the market popular among high-ranking officials, and the authorities turned a blind eye to its illegal activities. Kim Joo-hyuk decided that it would not be difficult to get there and continued to search for the necessary information. Suddenly, Choi Arin wrote to him, sending him an emoji of a crying rabbit. He asked what she wanted. The girl complained that she would not be able to come to tomorrow's training because of the trip. After learning that he was also planning to leave, she sent a few more stickers, which he found strange and slightly frightening. However, in a forum post he found a link to book a place at the market and received coordinates. The meeting place turned out to be next to an old cafe. Entering inside, he headed to the right corner, where he found a door. Opening it, he stepped into a dark corridor leading to a strange space with a purple moon and an unusual sky. The place gave him a feeling of déjà vu, although he was sure he had never been there. The purple sky and cloudy moon seemed vaguely familiar, but he couldn't figure out why. A man in a leather jacket, the market employee mentioned in the instructions, approached him. He asked if the newcomer knew how to use the market. Kim Joo-hyuk replied that he did to some extent and gave away almost all of the prize money from first place in the entrance exams, leaving only 30,000 won. He decided that this was not such a big sacrifice for making money. The employee asked if he had any questions. The main character asked where to go to sell jewelry. The employee asked if he wanted to put them up for auction, but Kim Joo-hyuk insisted on a quick sale. Then he was advised to go to the third area of the market, where many traders buy gold, jewelry, and ammunition. When asked about the most reliable merchant, the employee pointed to Morris, known for its best prices. He explained that you need to go straight ahead until you reach the fork, and then straight ahead again. He also strongly recommended wearing a mask, as most people at the market cover their faces due to the nature of the goods. Having presented the mask as a gift, the employee wished him good luck. Kim Joo-hyuk thanked him and headed to the third district. There he found Morris and said that he wanted to sell some things. The merchant replied that it all depended on the goods, but he could quickly assess gold and jewelry. The main character took out a bag of treasure. As Morris examined them, he was surprised to recognize them as artifacts from the era of destruction, rare and valuable relics. He asked the young man where they got them from, but Kim Joo-hyuk reminded him that such questions were not asked at the market. Morris apologized and admitted that he could not buy them back due to lack of funds. He suggested putting the artifacts up for auction in a tall building, but warned that it would take 2 to 3 weeks due to reservations. Kim Joo-hyuk sighed and asked how much they might cost. Morris showed the amount on his phone, which amazed him with the number of zeros. The merchant explained that this was only his estimate, but the price could skyrocket at auction. Artifacts from the Age of Destruction are valuable not only because of the passage of time, but also because of the synergy with the constellations that emerged at the end of that era. Even an ordinary person could make a contract with an S-rank constellation like the Alchemist Zone with them. Morris, having confirmed the authenticity of the mana circulation artifacts, offered to buy the 8 rings, calling it his lucky day. Kim Joo-hyuk agreed to sell the part, earning a large sum of money, which solved his money problems. Leaving the market through the same door, he returned to the cafe. Suddenly, Lilia, the instructor, called and offered to have lunch at the gym at her expense. She quickly hung up. The protagonist thought, maybe she wants to be friends, but since he is free, why not agree? As he was leaving, he did not notice how a man approached Morris, who turned out to be the Black Cat, the owner of the market. He joked that Morris shouldn't chat with him so casually, but admitted that he appreciated his manner of communication. Black Cat said that for the first time in a long time, he anonymously submitted an application for the auction, as his constellation was interested in the ring. While examining the artifacts, he received a notification. Another constellation was also watching the ring and wanted to get it. At the Valhalla restaurant, Kim Joo-hyuk was having lunch with the teacher Lilia, but he didn't touch the food, wondering why the academy needed such a restaurant. Lilia explained that in addition to the canteen and cafe for staff, there are regular restaurants for students and employees. Surprised by his ignorance, she got down to business, offering to become her assistant. The main character immediately refused, but Lilia insisted that he at least listen. She said that the assistant would receive a scholarship, many guarantees, and a chance to write a dissertation on the new features of monsters. If the work is published, his name will be added to the list of the World Association for the Study of Monsters, which will bring fame and fortune. In addition, he will be able to leave the academy twice a week, instead of once a month. Kim Joo-hyuk asked skeptically if there were any other privileges. Lily, slightly irritated, added that he could work with her, but he again refused, saying that her proposals were not interesting. His main goal is to reach the eye of the Great Forest, which is only accessible during the certification, and her help will not speed up the process. He doesn't want to be an assistant or write a dissertation. Lilia suggested an alternative, exchanging information. She will share information that will interest him if he tells her about his knowledge of monsters. The teacher mentioned Choi Aron, hinting that they were close since he was training her. Kim Joo-hyuk countered that it was only helping with stamina, and that rumors about Aron possibly being expelled from the Choijin family did not bother him. He stood up to leave, declaring that her privileges were not attractive. Lily insisted and demanded that he share at least some information in exchange, but he refused, noting that her offer was of no interest to him. However, he asked a question. Why is she so friendly outside of class, but stern during lessons? Lilia explained that as an instructor teaching how to fight monsters, she had to be strict. The material she teaches is about survival, and many students don't remember even basic attacks, so she has to be tough. Kim Joo-hyuk called it ideology, but Lilia countered that it was her duty. She again tried to demand information from him in return for the dinner, but he refused and left. Meanwhile, in Sihong, at the Choijin family, the head of the True History Guild, Choi Jeon-seo, gathered his eldest son, Choi Jin-jong, and his second daughter, Arin. He announced that in 3 weeks there would be a placement test, the successful completion of which would allow them to enter into a contract through the sacred relic of the Volned scientists, confirming the right to the family inheritance. Failure will result in immediate expulsion. Arin and Jin-jong promised to handle it. After the meeting, Jin-jong mockingly asked his sister if she hadn't understood her father's hints. He implied that her desire to become the head of the family was an illusion and called her illegitimate, stating that she, who was unable to receive the blessing of the constellation, was no match for him, who had already entered into a contract. He advised her to spend the family's money while she could, and promised that she would pay in 3 weeks. Arin, gritting her teeth, remembered her mother's words. Having become the head of the family, she would be able to do whatever she wanted. This goal became her main one, and she vowed to achieve it. During class in Valhalla, Kim Joo-hyuk was lost in thought when Barsh, the demon sealed within his sword, noticed that exams were about to begin. He chided the boy for his inattention because Ligon, their instructor, was right now explaining the details of the upcoming test to the class. The main character, who usually ignores such announcements, did not pay any attention to this. Ligon stressed that exams at the academy are extremely important. Those who score the minimum score on the midterm and main tests will be expelled. He urged students to prepare seriously, especially for the written tests, which will be more numerous than the practical ones. Kim Joo-hyuk knew that he had to stay at the academy until he reached the eye of the Great Forest, but he didn't know how to get there. He decided to ask Barcho, who was present at all the classes. The guy offered the demon to write tests for him, promising to check the answers and point out mistakes. Barch objected, calling it a dishonest deception. But Kim Joo-hyuk insisted that he would have used his hints anyway, so the demon should do it on his own. At this point, their argument ended, and the main character left the classroom. Choi Aaron approached him and asked if he would be training today. Kim Joo-hyuk, deciding it was time to talk, suggested that she start learning fencing. He noticed that, judging by her training, she had almost no skill with a sword. Instead of complex martial arts, he decided to teach her how to hold a blade correctly. He arranged to meet in the training room next to the gym, and Aaron, delighted, agreed. During training, he asked her when the last time she held a sword was. The girl replied that she had not touched him for a day and a half since the start of their strength training, although she had previously trained daily. The protagonist told her to draw the blade and squeeze the handle, putting force into her ring finger and little finger. At that moment, her sword burst into blue flames, even though she wasn't trying to use magic. Aaron felt that this grip allowed her to control the weapon better than with both hands. Kim Joo-hyuk ordered to attack with all his might. She concentrated, and her movements quickened. Her legs, as if by themselves, became faster, and her blows more precise. He warned her not to put too much magic into her legs and told her to keep attacking. Aaron stepped back and began swinging her sword again. The protagonist noted that her strike was already good, but advised her to better turn her body when stopping. He encouraged her to keep attacking, and she continued to hone her skills, striking with increasing confidence. Kim Joo-hyuk, observing, realized that through training, Aaron had become much stronger, as he expected. Her progress confirmed that focusing on endurance and proper technique was producing results, despite her habit of relying on constellation magic. After an hour of intense training at Valhalla Gym, Kim Joo-hyuk suggested Choi Aaron to finish the session. The girl, exhausted, felt that her skill had noticeably improved. The skills she had during the entrance exams were nothing compared to her current ones, although she was far from the level of the main character. It was for this reason that she asked him to teach her fencing. Plucking up her courage, Aaron approached him and asked if he would agree to spar with her next time. Kim Joo-hyuk, evasively answering that he didn't know, thought about it. It seemed to him that communicating with her could be useful. He noticed her talent during the exam. She uses breathing techniques familiar to him, but somehow differently. This could help restore his own feelings, lost over 300 years. In the past, he might have considered her worthy of becoming a student, but now, in the new era, everything was different. Aaron repeated her request for sparring, and he, deciding to joke, said that he didn't want to. She immediately agreed with his words, believing that following his instructions would make her stronger. They agreed to meet later. 2 weeks later, all the students gathered at the Valhalla Stadium. Soyeon from the Yushin family, who was here for the first time since the entrance ceremony, was amazed by the number of students. Oh Se-hyuk was also surprised by their number. Kim Joo-hyuk, not understanding the purpose of the gathering, asked Barchi, sealed in his sword. The demon reminded that the class teacher had spoken about this 2 weeks ago. At this moment, Instructor Lagoon came out to the students and announced the procedure for conducting midterm exams. The task was to survive in an artificially created F+ rank dungeon. Students were required to form teams, ideally of 8 people, although teams could be formed individually. Scores were based on contribution to the challenge, and disqualification was threatened for those who failed to complete the task within 5 hours. He stressed that team cohesion is the key to success, and poorly balanced groups risk failure due to internal conflicts. Examiners will be watching, and there are 3 possible outcomes: pass, fail, or disqualification. The students, filled with emotion, began to form groups. Soyeon took the lead, gathering a team of 6 people with decent skills, knowing that it was enough for an F+ dungeon. She took into account the importance of teamwork, knowing that children from influential families like hers would better understand the nature of the challenge. Other students formed groups of 8 or 10, but the unbalanced teams often fought. In half an hour, everyone was supposed to enter the dungeon, and preparations for the evaluation began. Kim Joo-hyuk, watching, wondered if there were any students who completed the exam with a passing score right away. He noticed Aaron, who still hadn't entered the dungeon. Coming up, he asked if she was waiting for better weather by the sea. She replied that she was following his advice. The protagonist, irritated by her repetition of his words, said that he would go alone and advised her to come in as well. Aaron was surprised, but decided to follow his example. A team of 7 people approached her, offering to join to become the 8th. She apologized, saying that she would go alone. They tried to dissuade her, warning her about disqualification, but Aaron, confident in Kim Joo-hyuk's words that it was not difficult, insisted on her own and entered the dungeon alone. In the observation room of the Valhalla Stadium, teachers closely watched the students through special glasses that recorded their actions in the dungeon. Lee Gun, one of the instructors, noted that the grades may seem strict, but they are clear and without errors. Lee Sang-cheol, a combat instructor and legendary contractor with a 99% success rate in clearing dungeons, was known as a master of precision ever since his days as a soldier. His professionalism and regalia gave him the right to award any score, and his colleagues respected his opinion. Lee Sang-cheol thought, "This year has given the Academy talented students, especially the 5th-generation heirs." Among them, So-yeon from the Yushin family stood out. She confidently led the team, motivated her comrades, and skillfully fought monsters. On a normal raid, she assigned roles to ensure points by taking a position that ensured the clearing of the dungeon. The instructors were sure that if it weren't for Kim Joo-hyuk, So-yeon would have easily returned to the top of the class. After mentioning Kim Joo-hyuk, Lee Sang-cheol decided to check on his progress. He switched to the camera, but the search engine, which was capable of finding any student in the dungeon, could not find him. It turned out that the main character entered the dungeon alone and completed it in 23 minutes and 32 seconds. The instructors were amazed. The 18-year-old schoolboy showed a result worthy of a team of 8 people. Lee Sang-cheol decided to review the recordings. Kim Joo-hyuk was a master swordsman, striking with incredible precision and speed, causing real carnage. The orcs fell one after another, and the special golem that had been modeled for the exam was defeated with a single blow. The teachers watched his actions in admiration. Lee Sang-cheol realized that first place in the midterm exams would go to this guy again. In the Valhalla Teachers' Lounge, Lee Gun was looking over the results of the midterm exams and was stunned. Kim Joo-hyuk took first place again, which came as a surprise despite speculation that he might be in the lead. No one expected him to clear a rank F+ dungeon alone in 23 minutes and 32 seconds without a single scratch. Lee Gun noted that if the guy continues to develop like this and joins the industry, Korea can regain the title of the birthplace of the strongest contractor in the world, as it did with the legendary Sam. Lee Sang-cheol, the combat instructor, was so excited that he was at a loss for words. Lee Gun added that it was a pleasant surprise that Choi Aaron came in second place, beating out So-yeon from the Yushin family. Like Kim Joo-hyuk, she cleared the dungeon alone, and although she was injured, she completed the clearing quickly. Lee Sang-cheol noted that despite the emphasis on teamwork, the two received high scores for their individual contributions. However, he would not advise other students to repeat their methods. Ordinary students cannot do it. Lee Gun thought about Aaron. She radiates the aura of the future leader of the Choi Jin Guild. But the decision to go into the dungeon alone seems strange. He assumed that Kim Joo-hyuk had influenced her, but quickly dismissed the thought, deciding to focus on giving grades. The next day, the students crowded around the bulletin board, amazed by the results. Kim Joo-hyuk in first place, Aaron in second. Rockdil Ventric, seething with anger, asked his subordinate Yuria where Dicer was. Upon learning that he was in Korea, he ordered that he be contacted immediately and prepared for the meeting. In Seoul, Rockdill and Dizer met for dinner. Dizer asked who the guy was that was irritating them. Rockdill waved it off, calling the first year a brainless orphan who was annoying with his humble origins. He told Dizer to choose for himself how to deal with him, as long as the job was done. Dizer, recalling a previous incident when he had to kill several members of the palace family to hush up rumors because of a woman, noted that it was more difficult to cause a stir at the university. Rockdill assured that he would prepare everything necessary and provide a generous reward. A week later, Kim Joo-hyuk applied to leave the academy again. Barch reminded that high exam scores give the right to additional exits, and such an opportunity cannot be missed. The protagonist decided to use this to find the remaining caches. He went to Suwon, believing that one of them was nearby. However, to his surprise, Dizer appeared before him, whose presence foreshadowed trouble. At the black market in the 7th district, the market owner known as the Black Cat received a notice from the Beyond constellation asking when the ring would be available. He reported that the artifact would soon undergo standard procedures and arrive through the portal. The Black Cat was surprised by the constellation's persistence, as he had never seen such a reaction before. When the ring was delivered, he hoped that the constellation would be appeased by receiving it. Having placed the artifact in a box, he offered the constellation to take it, but received the answer that it was already here. The owner, puzzled, wondered about the ring's dating back to the era of destruction, which made it especially valuable. Meanwhile, in Suwon, Kim Joo-hyuk encountered Dizer, sent by Rockdill Ventric. The stranger, standing in front of him, asked what he wanted. The protagonist, immediately suspecting an attempt to get rid of him, asked Dizer to look at himself, hinting that any opponent would instinctively understand his strength. He realized this a few days ago, observing the reactions of others. Dizer, angry, called him stupid for a first year who had won first place in Valhalla, and swung his fist. Kim Joo-hyuk dodged the blow deftly, and it hit the tree, splitting it in two. Dizer grinned and called him lucky, suggesting that it was his lucky day. The protagonist laughed and replied that he simply dodged because the attack was slow. Having assessed the strength of his opponent, Kim Joo-hyuk realized that Dizer was superior even to Oh Se-hyuk, and his fragile body was not yet ready to withstand such blows. Deciding not to engage in direct combat, he turned and ran. Dizer, rushing in pursuit, shouted that he would not let him escape, waving his fists. However, Kim Joo-hyuk suddenly stopped, pointed his fist at his opponent, and asked if he was using mana. Dizer, amazed by the speed, did not notice how the guy ended up so close. The main character's blow threw him back several meters. Kim Joo-hyuk continued to attack with kicks and punches. Dizer, having dodged the last blow, stood up and, still in shock, asked what he had just done. The protagonist, with a grin, asked him if he didn't know that he had taken first place in Valhalla. Dizer, not understanding how the guy became so strong, suggested that he could have taken some kind of drugs. Dizer, exiled from the Ventric family, reflected on his past. His natural talent, immunity to the side effects of elixirs, made him a tool for his parents, who fed him potions worth hundreds of millions to raise the family's status. By the age of 16, he had become stronger than an ordinary person, but his family wanted to use him for their own purposes. Unwilling to live under their control, Dizer killed them all, seizing power. However, despite his overwhelming strength, he was driven out, posing as the leader, and became an outcast. He didn't care about his family's recognition. In this dark world, all problems were solved with money. After breaking with the Ventrices, he only strengthened his power. Rockdill's mission attracted him not only because of the reward, but also because of his interest in Kim Joo-hyuk, a first year who had won first place in the entrance exam and was causing a stir there. Dizer decided that it would be fun to play with him. When confronted by Kim Joo-hyuk, Dizer asked what elixirs he took to become so strong, since the cheap remedies available to an orphan would not be enough. The protagonist laughed and called his words nonsense, explaining that he had achieved his strength solely through hard training. He compared Deezer to Oh Se-hyuk, but noted that it would be rude to compare the latter's natural talent with such a boy. Deezer, enraged, took out a sword surrounded by a dark aura. His magical power grew and he shouted, "Did Kim Joo-hyuk really think that he would be let go so easily?" But the main character, not allowing the enemy to regroup, struck, throwing him back against a tree. Grabbing Deezer by the hair, he began to beat his face, saying that he asked for a beating. Kim Joo-hyuk was not going to let him go because Deezer threatened to deal with him. He demanded to grit his teeth and swung for another blow. Meanwhile, in the Valhalla dormitory, Rockdeal Ventric waited for a response from Deezer. Knowing his character, he was sure that he most likely killed Kim Joo-hyuk. Cleaning up outside of a school is a hassle, but since it happened off campus, Rockdeal thought it went perfectly. He told Yuri to get the car ready, but then he received a call from Deezer. Expecting to hear his brother, Rockdeal heard some indistinct sounds, and then Kim Joo-hyuk's voice. He mockingly reported that Rockdeal's jaw must have dropped, and relayed Deezer's words. If he died, let Rockdeal burn 2 sticks of incense for him. Kim Joo-hyuk made it clear that he knew who was behind the attack and told Rockdeal to wait for him. Rockdeal Ventric hung up without saying a word, irritated by the first year's insolence. When the assistant brought tea, he shouted at her, refusing the drink. His thoughts were occupied with Kim Joo-hyuk. He didn't expect him to defeat Deezer, who was known for his strength. Rockdeal was at a loss as to how to get this guy now, knowing that Deezer's failure could reach the Ventric family, which would have undesirable consequences. However, he decided that Kim Joo-hyuk's poor background would play into his hands. He was unlikely to get into an influential family. Rockdeal decided to lie low and quietly watch the enemy, avoiding unnecessary noise. Meanwhile, Kim Joo-hyuk, leaving the beaten Deezer, continued on his way to Suwon. Barsh, the demon in his sword, spoke up, asking if he had forgotten his head at home, since he had gotten into a fight with such an opponent. The main character replied that he would deal with him later, since there was nothing he could do now. Barsh asked why he didn't kill Deezer. Kim Joo-hyuk explained that in his past life he might have done so, but in this world it would only bring trouble. The demon noticed that the dark aura that Deezer released from the sword seemed familiar to him. If Kim Joo-hyuk had poured in more mana, he might have been able to recognize it. Barsh suggested that this was related to black magic, which was used for animal sacrifices 300 years ago. The protagonist agreed that the aura could be related to the hidden side of the Blade constellation that Deezer mentioned. Kim Joo-hyuk tried to find out from Deezer who sent him, but he remained silent, probably because of his broken jaw. The guy straightened it out and repeated the question, but Deezer remained silent. Enraged, Kim Joo-hyuk squeezed his hand, breaking his fingers, and demanded that he tell him everything, threatening to break the rest. Deezer, giving in, admitted that he had been hired by Rockdeal Ventric. The protagonist, who had long suspected this student, asked why Deezer was here and whether he was from Valhalla. Deezer introduced himself as a first-kind mercenary who carried out orders. Kim Joo-hyuk, remembering the first kind, called them hooligans living off other people's money. Deezer, insulted, stated that his constellation was the hidden side of the Blade, and if he had held on for another 30 seconds with magic, the outcome of the battle would have been different. Kim Joo-hyuk, unimpressed, said he could leave him alone for telling the truth, but instead broke his jaw again, leaving him writhing in pain. Returning to the city, Kim Joo-hyuk was annoyed. He did not find his hiding places, and Rockdeal Ventric continued to plot. Having decided to act using modern methods, he recorded Deezer's confession and wondered where to post it. He called Lilia, his teacher. She, delighted, asked if he had changed his mind about becoming her assistant. Kim Joo-hyuk replied that he needed a reporter among her acquaintances to convey important information. The next day, news of the attack on a Valhalla student by the Ventric family thundered through the media. Kim Joo-hyuk, pleased with the result, noted that this is what modern wars look like. Barsh, the demon in his sword, praised him for quickly adapting to today's culture despite living 300 years ago. The main character admitted that adaptation was not easy. He got used to it by browsing through communities on the internet. However, he was annoyed. He only wanted to set up Rockdale Ventric. But the journalists, thanks to the reporter Lilia introduced him to, blew up the scandal, affecting the entire Ventric family. The head of the family, Adelia Ventric, issued an official statement. She apologized for the incident, stressing that the attack was carried out by Daiser, who had long been exiled from the family. According to her, his admission of Rockdale's involvement was a bluff to get out of it. Adelia assured that the family had nothing to do with the incident, but since Daiser was once a Ventric, they felt it was their duty to make amends. She promised to personally apologize to the victim. As for Rockdale, he was suspected of having an indirect connection with Daiser, so he was taken home for an internal investigation. The prosecutor's office also began an investigation into the family, and Adelia assured that they would sort out the problems. Rockdale received a call from his father ordering him to return home. It was a family order, and he obeyed. The next day, he saw an interview with Daiser, where he took full blame, claiming that he had planned the attack alone. Kim Joo-hyuk was shocked when he watched this video. Did Daiser really give up his pride? He despised the Ventrics, but the thought of Adelia apologizing in person made him uneasy. Deciding that the lesson should end early, he went to the cafe on the academy grounds to meet Lilia. She again offered to become her assistant, but he refused. The teacher jokingly asked if he had asked her out on a date, but, noticing his informal tone, she was surprised. Kim Joo-hyuk replied that they had been communicating like this for a long time. He thanked her for introducing him to the reporter and offered to share information about fighting monsters in exchange for help with leaving the academy on the weekend. Lily promised daily outings if he became her assistant, but he refused again. Meanwhile, in the North Pacific, on a prisoner transport frigate, Daiser was in a combat cell. He was furious. He was being sent to the prison tower, a prison created by the S-rank constellation, where even the strongest contractors were rendered helpless. Daiser knew he had to keep quiet so that Rockdale would remain in the family, which could reduce his sentence by 5 years. Otherwise, disaster awaited him. Hearing a familiar voice, he turned around and after the blow saw in front of him a figure whose appearance foreshadowed new problems. He encountered an unknown assailant who, without warning, fatally stabbed him in the throat. As he died, Daiser heard the words, "The first kind has no need of the likes of you." His life was cut short before he could fulfill his promise to remain silent in order to reduce his sentence. Meanwhile, at the Ventric family mansion, Rockdale met with the head of the family, Adelia, and his father. The chief demanded to know what prompted him to organize the attack on Kim Joo-hyuk. Rockdale apologized, saying he had acted to protect the family's honor, but Adelia countered that his actions had tarnished the Ventric's reputation because of wounded pride. She was furious, but she was faced with the question, what to do? Rockdale fell to his knees, vowing to restore the family's former honor. Adelia, skeptically, noted that the only way was to banish him, like Daiser. Rockdale's father objected, considering the punishment too harsh, but Adelia clarified that exile would confirm Rockdale's guilt, which she wanted to avoid. Instead, she told him to return to Valhalla, keep his mouth shut, and wait for her meeting with Kim Joo-hyuk, after which she would make a decision. The father strictly ordered his son to keep a low profile so as not to make the situation worse. Rockdale, however, whispered to his father that despite the media hype, he would find a way to fix everything once the dust settled. He hinted at a new plan, asking his father to keep it a secret and help. A few days later, in the Valhalla meeting room, The teachers discussed the upcoming visit of Adelia Ventrick, who was going to personally apologize to Kim Joo-hyuk. Ligon noted that although the family officially disowned the incident, from a moral point of view, their actions were correct. He heard that Adelia would be flying to Korea. Kim Joo-hyuk, irritated, believed that the family wanted to punish Rockdil on their own, and the head's visit was a forced step. Ligon and the other instructors were upset. The attack on the student, Dizer's admission of Rockdil's involvement, and the Ventrick's attempts to hush up the scandal raised questions. Ligon suspected that the family was donating large sums of money to the academy to turn a blind eye to the incident. Kim Joo-hyuk responded calmly and stated that he would talk to Adelia. Ligon, surprised by his composure, wished him luck. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. The head of the family had arrived. Ligon left the room, leaving them alone. Adelia walked in, introduced herself, and said she was glad to meet you. Kim Joo-hyuk, remaining calm, responded in kind. In the Valhalla meeting room, Adelia Ventrick, the head of the family, began the meeting with Kim Joo-hyuk by apologizing for the incident with Dizer. She stressed that Rockdil, although he had harassed him, had nothing to do with the attack, as had been publicly stated. Kim Joo-hyuk reminded that she promised to expel Rockdil, but Adelia explained that their family was in a stalemate due to a loss of trust. She asked for his assistance to settle the scandal, promising support until he graduated from the academy, and a recommendation to the Ventrick-sponsored guilds to ease his future. The protagonist, mentally calling the Ventricks liars, refused, stating that he did not need their rewards. He wanted their shame, caused by Rockdil, to continue. Adelia, furious, surrounded herself with demonic energy, reminding him who he was talking to. She said she came to the vile academy to give him a chance at glory, and he dared to insult her. Kim Joo-hyuk, unimpressed, noted that she first denied the family's involvement, then offered money to keep quiet, and now threatened to kill him, but she would not be able to kill him. Adelia, holding back her anger, left, warning him that he would regret every word. Left alone, Kim Joo-hyuk discussed the situation with Barch. Barch asked if it was worth provoking Adelia like that. The protagonist replied that he hated tyrants who forced others to obey, and compared her to an insect putting on shackles. Barch, whom he hated for the same reason, agreed. Kim Joo-hyuk, exhaling, decided to go to bed since classes were over. Not far from the Valhalla Stadium, he noticed Arin, in front of whom stood Choi Jin-jong, the eldest son of the Choi Jin family. He scoffed, asking if she really thought she could win the selection test. He advised her not to show up to avoid public humiliation and extended his hand for a deal. Arin ignored him, angering Jin-jong, who called it her last chance. Kim Joo-hyuk intervened, calling him a klutz and demanding that he stay away from the academy students. Jin-jong, not knowing him, was indignant, but the protagonist, not paying attention, told him to get out. He asked Arin if she agreed, and she nodded silently. Jin-jong, having dropped the hint that they would meet at the test, left. Arin thanked the teacher, but admitted that when he asked for her consent, she thought, instead of get lost, she would have chosen another word. Kim Joo-hyuk, calling her scarier than he thought, advised her to forget about the incident and continue training. On Shihyong Hill, Kim Joo-hyuk continued searching for his hiding places. Barch asked if the treasures he had already found weren't enough for him. The protagonist admitted that the demon was partly right, but curiosity drove him forward. How many caches survived, and what valuable things were left in them? He hoped that the findings would help him overcome the weaknesses that had plagued him since his days as Kim Hyun-oh. He even thought that if he had met Barch earlier, he might not have killed him 300 years ago. Meanwhile, the selection test began in the Choi Jin family. Reporters crowded outside the building as the head of the family, Choi Jong-seok, announced that the winner who found the double blade in the mountains would become the heir, while the losers would be exiled. Aren and Jingjong agreed to participate. The task was simple: find the blade by any means necessary, but without killing. Aren rushed forward, and Jingjong, laughing, decided that he would take the sword from his sister when she found it. The day before, a stranger called him, interested in a double blade. Jingjong explained that he needed to pass a test to get it and asked for more time. The stranger, reminding him that the promise was made before the constellation, guaranteed its fulfillment if Jingjong concentrated. He, realizing that this was his last chance, began searching. Aren, making her way through the forest, felt the magical trace of a blade 15 minutes away. She moved in that direction, and Jingjong, noticing her, realized that the sword was there too. He asked who taught her to search by magic trail. Aren replied that it was Kim Ju-hyuk, who explained the basics of mana control to her. She had mastered changing the properties of lightning, but the teacher showed her how to work with small elements of control. He taught her to relax her body, to use her fingertips, to distribute the magic slowly, to feel it in the air. Aren tried. She was enveloped in magical flame, and she saw an aura around herself and the teacher, but quickly ran out of steam. Kim Ju-hyuk explained that this would allow her to recognize even weak magical surges. With practice, she will be able to see the silhouettes of objects by their magic, especially if the mana type is similar to her own. He added that she would have to learn on her own from now on. Aren nodded happily. Jingjong, hearing this, remembered the shameless guy with Aren. Surprised that such a scumbag possessed such talent, he approached his sister menacingly. Aren stated that her teacher was stronger than him. Jingjong, without holding back, drew his sword and attacked. Aren parried the blow, shocking her brother. He couldn't believe that she had become so strong and wondered when she had managed to develop so much. On Shiyong Hill, Kim Ju-hyuk continued searching for his hiding places. He was irritated. In all of Valhalla, there was only one stash left, and its absence angered him. After going around one more time, he finally found her and was delighted. But then he heard a powerful explosion nearby. Deciding to check it out, he rushed there and saw the aftermath of the battle between Choi Aren and her brother Jingjong. They continued to fight, dealing crushing blows to each other. Jingjong mocked that the academy had taught Aren to be a wild boar, and admitted that she had become physically stronger. Aren demanded that he step back from the double blade, but he only laughed, calling her a bastard, unworthy of the relic. Aren, remembering Kim Ju-hyuk's advice, delivered precise blows and eventually knocked her brother to the ground. She was sure that this blow would be decisive and was going to take the blade. However, Jingjong, having found the strength to rise, surrounded himself with a demonic aura and reminded him that her blessing was laughable compared to his contract with the constellation. He declared that he would return her defeat 100-fold. Aren, noticing the aura, asked if he was a villain. Jingjong was surprised by her question, but dodged her close-range strike, stunning her, and knocked her to the ground. He stabbed her in the stomach, telling her not to move or she would die. Aren tried to speak, asking if he had made a contract with the evil constellation. Jingjong confirmed that in order to save the face of the Choijin Guild, he signed a contract with an A-rank constellation from the Devotees faction, the third most dangerous in the world. He was surprised that she cared about his choice and asked if she knew from what age he had been toiling in the family guild. From the age of 12, only heroic deeds were expected from him, the eldest son, but he could never choose for himself. As a teenager, he met a devotee who invited him to join, promising him power and freedom unavailable in his previous life. The condition was to obtain the family heirloom, a double blade. If Aren had given up earlier, he would have easily gotten it. Jingjong confessed that 10 years ago, during the first selection test, he killed their older sister, Choi Ajin, but did not find the blade and failed the test. Father found Ajin and tried to save her by sending her to the hospital, but she disappeared. Jingjong hinted that Aren's mother fainted when she saw her missing sister in her face, and told her to tell Ajin hello from him. Jingjong swung his sword again to finish off Aren, but at the last moment, Kim Ju-hyuk intervened, stopping his blade. Kim Ju-hyuk angrily asked what the hell he was doing. Jingjong replied that it was a family matter and told them not to interfere. The main character, shocked by the cruelty of the family, where threatening his sister with a knife is considered normal, decided to take revenge. He hit Jingjong. Aren, surprised, asked why the teacher was here. He explained that he was looking for a stash in that direction and noticed her stomach wound. He told her to retreat and heal the wound with magic, which she did. Jingjong, recognizing Kim Ju-hyuk as the rude man who had stood up for his sister earlier, called it a family squabble and, clutching his sword, attacked. The protagonist dodged masterfully, stating that when striking, one should not aim at a stationary target, but rather watch for an attentive opponent. He delivered a crushing blow and finished off Jingjong. Having flown away, he realized that the enemy had gone further. Kim Ju-hyuk asked Aren if she could walk, but she was unsure. Suddenly, Jingjong's body was engulfed in dark flames. Barch contacted Kim Ju-hyuk, warning him that it was sword magic, and the protagonist asked if Jingjong was the villain. He stood up and called him a bastard and a newcomer to Valhalla who didn't dare compete with the guild leader. He attacked again, but Kim Ju-hyuk didn't budge, continuing to fight back and mocking that the guild leader could have chosen a better position. Jingjong, amazed that the 17-year-old boy was blocking and counterattacking, took out a crystal from his jacket to make a preliminary contract with the constellation. After biting into it, he began to emit a demonic aura. Not far from the test site, the ground shook, and demonic energy, visible even to ordinary people, burst out from the forest. There was a double blade there. Choi Jong-seok, who was watching the test, realized what was happening. But according to tradition, he could not interfere. However, the situation was too dangerous, and he decided to check it out himself. Kim Ju-hyuk looked at Jingjong and said that he waited for him to finish, but was disappointed by the increase in magic. Jingjong replied that this was only a small part of the power of the contract. Suddenly, a notification came. The all-slaying dragons constellation recognized the sacred relic and descended. Jingjong gritted his teeth and activated the Dragon Eye's nature-piercing ability. A dragon appeared in front of Kim Ju-hyuk, but suddenly calmed down, overcome with fear, and refused to fight. The constellation broke the contract, took the power, and fled. Kim Ju-hyuk confidently walked up to Jingjong and asked who would be the end now. Meanwhile, the leader of the devotees, the Terror Dragon King, watched the events unfold. He contacted the all-slaying dragons constellation, who stated that Jingjong was the reason he was in trouble. The constellation ordered the leader not to spread artificial relics and to be a good boy. The leader, surprised by the constellation's fury, realized that Jingjong had done something that had frightened even the constellation. He decided to find out what happened. In the Valhalla dorm, Kim Ju-hyuk returned to his room and took out a book of divine arts from his backpack, a breathing technique that could greatly enhance magical power. This was the main goal of the search for his stash. In his past life, his technique was weak, bought cheaply at the market, which is why Barch defeated him 300 years ago. Now, with a new body, he could start over. He decided to pause his physical training in order to master the divine arts. Barch noticed that the situation with Aren had been resolved successfully, even though Jingjong had lost consciousness. Kim Ju-hyuk said he left after hearing footsteps, leaving the injured Aren with her brother. Barchu asked why he didn't kill Jingjong. The protagonist responded that after the incident with Daiser, murder would have resulted in expulsion or prison. He helped Aren up, but sensing someone approaching, he assumed it was her family and told her to wait for them, saying that she had defeated Jingjong herself, who had exhausted his strength. After saying goodbye, he left. planning to master the divine arts and accumulation stones at the academy, which he had previously been unable to fully master due to his weak susceptibility to magic. The Choi Jin family discussed the selection test. The press wrote about the chaos, and Yeon-suk couldn't believe that there was an informant for the devotees in the family. The association received the appeal, and, unlike the silence on the Ventrikov case, the Choi Jin could not ignore the situation. Jing-jong was handed over to the police, and Irene was taken to the family hospital. Her wound was serious, but the bleeding was stopped, and there was no organ damage. The articles praised Aaron as a Valhalla student who defeated a member of the devotees, like Kim Joo-hyuk. This strengthened her position as successor. But the victory over Jing-jong raised questions. Aaron told witnesses that her brother attacked her with dark magic, but she knocked him out using techniques taught to her by Kim Joo-hyuk. At Valhalla University, Kim Joo-hyuk noticed Aaron even though he thought she was in the hospital. She looked healthy and waved at him. He remembered that she had written about doctors prohibiting physical activity due to recent bleeding. Suddenly, Barch interrupted his thoughts, saying that they needed to discuss the black magic they had encountered. The demon felt as if something was preventing him from remembering her nature. Kim Joo-hyuk was surprised and asked if she was related to Jin-jong. Barcha suggested that perhaps meeting the second condition on the board would remove the interference. But that's just a theory. The protagonist remembered that the second condition was related to the Eye of the Great Forest, a training ground for exams where low scores could result in expulsion. He grabbed his head, calling waiting for the exams a waste of time, but decided that for now he could master Shindong and look for the Eye of the Great Forest. Teacher Ligon entered the classroom and ordered everyone to take their seats. He announced an inter-school competition in a month, where the selection of participants will be based on the results of the final exams. Ligon asked Kim Joo-hyuk to go to the teacher's room, joking that the meeting place cannot be changed. There he invited him to participate in an international competition where 3 of the largest schools, Korea's Valhalla, China's White Lotus, and America's Heroes, field first-year students for sparring, escaping a labyrinth, and other tasks. Participants with high scores on the practical exam will represent the academy, and victory will bring a scholarship. Kim Joo-hyuk refused, but Lee Gong, knowing his goal, mentioned that the final task of the competition was to enter the Eye of the Great Forest, which coincided with the final exam. Success in the competition will give automatic credit. Kim Joo-hyuk agreed to participate. At the Ventrik estate, Adelia inquired about Rockdeal's preparations. The servant reported that he was behaving normally, but mentioned disturbing rumors about a market where someone was building buildings out of paper money, presumably at the behest of the Black Cat. Adelia, not understanding his motives, received a message from the Constellation Mask, demanding details. Meanwhile, at the market in the 7th District, Black Cat assured the Constellation that he would carry out any of his orders. When asked about the meaning of the construction from banknotes, the Constellation replied that it was a gift. At the market in the 7th District, Black Cat asked the Constellation two-faced ruler why they were building a building out of banknotes. He replied that it was a gift. The Great Lord wondered if the cat had found the guy who sold the ring, but he was unable to track him down, although he remembered his facial features, voice, and clothes. He assured that he was doing everything possible to find him. In the Valhalla teacher's room, Lee Sang-cheol asked Ligon if he had chosen the participants for the inter-school competition. Ligon showed the list, saying that he had persuaded Kim Joo-hyuk, who had initially refused, but agreed after learning about the Eye of the Great Forest. Lee Sang-cheol found this interesting, noting that most of the students are scared of Oki, but Kim Joo-hyuk doesn't seem to know what it is, since he sleeps in class. He assumed that the academy was just a means for the boy to achieve his goals, and suggested gathering selected students for training. Ligon agreed and promised to adjust the schedule. A few days later, 5 people gathered in a small auditorium. Oh Se-hyuk, So-yeon, Arin, Cho Jun-jin, and Kim Joo-hyuk. Lee Sang-cheol, the chief combat instructor, introduced himself, noting that they had crossed paths at the academy. He explained that they had been gathered in preparation for an inter-school competition in a month's time. The training will include 3 tasks: a duel between students, similar to an entrance test; a team battle, where 3 schools fight at the same time, requiring the ability to quickly assess the situation; and a mission in the eye of the Great Forest, a heavily guarded labyrinth that can only be accessed through the main entrance, as the air route is blocked. Details of the 3rd task will be announced on the day of the competition. Lee Sang-cheol began to explain the specifics of team combat, drawing on their experiences in dungeon raids. Kim Joo-hyuk, listening, thought, "If there is a barrier, why can't we break through?" He decided that it was not that simple. The teacher asked if there were any questions. Kim Joo-hyuk asked to train alone, and Areen supported him. Lee Sang-cheol gave his permission, and the others chose teamwork, and the training ended. Kim Joo-hyuk knew that before the competition, he needed to master the divine arts in order to improve his form with the help of mana, devoting most of his time to training. Areen approached, asking if she should take part in the general training. He was surprised. Didn't she say that she couldn't train hard because of her health? Areen explained that she had discussed her condition with Lee-gun, but wanted to ask if Kim Joo-hyuk was participating in the competition. Having learned that yes, she also agreed. Lee-gun reminded that she had not recovered, but Areen assured that she would cope. She revealed that thanks to Kim Joo-hyuk, her goal of becoming the head of the Choi-jin family changed to wanting to become stronger with him and help him achieve his goals. Kim Joo-hyuk, noticing her strange reaction, advised her not to overdo it, focusing on controlling her mana with minimal leg activity. He promised to help her after his business. Meanwhile, one victim, tied to a chair, was tortured by having knives thrown at her. Suddenly, a photo arrived on the tormentor's phone with a caption that their new target for murder was Kim Joo-hyuk. The mercenaries were surprised why Samsul ordered the murder of a schoolboy, but decided that the client had paid a large sum. They planned to kill Kim Joo-hyuk in a month's time at the inter-school competition, since the academy and dorm were currently heavily guarded. They doubted that anyone would break through the magical barrier to kill the student. One of the mercenaries believed that it would be easier to do this at a competition where there would be other schools. She was given the customer's information. On the 3rd day of the competition, there would be a task in the eye of the Great Forest, a mysterious labyrinth where there would be no instructors, only a drone observer and several guards at the entrance. The teachers will be watching from the observation room. She decided to get there first, and the mercenaries will follow her, since the task is a priority. A month later, on the 1st day of the inter-school competition, students were preparing for the start. Rockdil Ventric was focused, remembering the conversation with his father. He admitted that he paid Il Shinjo, a 3-man Ripper gang, to kill Kim Joo-hyuk. The father was shocked, not believing that his son had decided to do this. Rockdil assured that his actions would not affect the family and that he would deal with it himself, since Samsul had accepted the order. "My father advised me not to stick my neck out." Rockdil, remembering that Il Shinjo had promised to sort things out at the competition, told Uria's assistant to leave. The competition has begun. Valhalla chairman Shim Deok-woon introduced the teams: China's White Lotus, America's Heroes, and Korea's Valhalla. The competition lasted 3 days, and the first day was devoted to individual sparring. Participants were asked to return to the waiting rooms for the announcement of the match results. The Heroes' chief instructor, Jack Rover, approached Lee Sang-cheol, whom he had not seen for a long time. He recalled that last year Heroes took 3rd place, while Valhalla often took 1st place. Lee Sang-cheol agreed, but Jack stated that the Heroes would win this year thanks to their best contractor, Logan, known as the Destroyer. His son, Jayar, representing the Heroes, made a contract with the All-Destroyers constellation using the same abilities, but weaker. Jack had heard about Kim Joo-hyuk teaching a villain a lesson, and Aaron doing the same, and he assumed that he and JR would work well together. The representative of Valhalla announced the participants of the first round. From Valhalla, Kim Joo-hyuk; from Heroes, JR. They went out onto the field. The rules were simple. The one who defeats the opponent wins. The blows to vital points were replaced by electric shocks to avoid a lethal outcome. But the pain remained. The defense system was in place before the team match, allowing us to give it our all. Kim Joo-hyuk was surprised by this system, but Barcha warned him to keep an eye on his physical fitness for the third mission. The main character immediately rushed at him with a fist. But the enemy grabbed his hand and asked if he really considered himself strong. Kim Joo-hyuk, while parrying JR's blows, noticed that he had a long way to go. JR, calling him more modest than he expected, asked what the difference was between modesty and chatter. The protagonist, continuing to grow in strength, easily blocked attacks. He asked how long JR would just defend himself and dealt him a heavy blow that sent him flying. Kim Joo-hyuk admitted that his opponent was tougher than he thought, expecting to win with one blow. Lee Sang-cheol, watching, noted JR's strength, since he withstood the blow. Jack Rover, the hero's instructor, said he had seen Kim Joo-hyuk fight on rating videos, but he wasn't that formidable back then. JR, not yet using destruction, concentrated his power in his hand and attacked. But Kim Joo-hyuk dodged and kicked him, slightly scorching his hair. He asked if this was a devastating ability. JR, having taken 2 blows to the stomach, was ready to fall, but decided to use destruction. He directed his magic at the floor and destroyed it, sending up debris. He stated that he would make the attacks unpredictable by surrounding himself with spinning rocks. Kim Joo-hyuk easily found him, laughing at his attempt to hide behind the stove, and delivered another punch. JR flew away and did not rise. Kim Joo-hyuk was declared the winner. Jack Rover, shocked by his student's defeat, heard from Lee Sang-cheol that Kim Joo-hyuk was a monster, so he did not react sentimentally. In the next round against White Lotus, Kim Joo-hyuk won again, and then in the match against Heroes. In the final of the individual sparring, he met Aaron. She noted that both were from Valhalla, so the Academy's victory was guaranteed, but the fight was needed for the rating. Aaron offered to give in since she didn't need the stipend, but Kim Joo-hyuk insisted that she not give up for the sake of the viewers and show progress, taking into account her injuries. Aaron attacked with her sword, but Kim Joo-hyuk knocked her down with one blow. The Valhalla representative declared him the winner of the individual fight. Barcha called it ruthless, recalling that Kim Joo-hyuk had promised to take Aaron's injuries into account. He replied that he was holding back his blows, but the trajectory of her blade suddenly changed, aiming for her stomach, and he reflexively punched. He noted that Aaron had become stronger and his mana reserves had increased, allowing him to hold more energy. Lee Sang-cheol praised the participants, noting that the protection system prevented injuries, but advised them to visit the infirmary and talked about tomorrow's stage. Kim Joo-hyuk thought it was a waste of time, irritated by the wait for the eye of the great forest. Lee Sang-cheol suggested ending the meeting and taking a rest. Returning to the rooms, Kim Joo-hyuk stopped him to talk. In the teacher's room, Lee Sang-cheol asked Kim Joo-hyuk if he had a question. He asked whether it was possible to move on to the eye of the great forest after the early end of the team fight. Lee Sang-cheol replied that there were no such cases, but according to the rules, there are 2 conditions. If the task is completed before noon, the teacher can allow moving on to the next one. If the place is not prepared or the participants are unable, they may prepare for a repeat or the next task at the discretion of the teacher. Kim Joo-hyuk asked if he could start okay if he finished the team battle early and came to the teacher's room. Lee Sang-cheol confirmed that it was even better if he started in the afternoon. Kim Joo-hyuk, pleased, said that he understood everything and they would see each other tomorrow. Lee Sang-cheol wished him good night. Barch asked if he really wanted to pass the eye in a day. Kim Joo-hyuk was glad that he knew about the mission in advance, and Barch asked if he was planning to involve students from other academies. The main character decided not to waste time. The next day, in the inner sanctum of Valhalla, Yasan, the representative of the academy, opened the second day of the competition by announcing a team battle. 5 representatives from each school, Valhalla, White Lotus, and Heroes, will meet in the rugged mountain terrain, with viewers watching via holographic broadcast. Soyeon was angry when she couldn't see Kim Joo-hyuk, who was late and apologized. She shouted at him, asking if he knew what time it was, since he was supposed to arrive half an hour ago. Kim Joo-hyuk explained that he overslept while thinking about something else, and assured that he would figure it out himself. Soyeon was outraged, reminding him that this was a team fight, not an individual one. And after his victory in the sparring, Valhalla became a target for the Heroes and the White Lotus. Aaron intervened, asking if she could also act alone, but Kim Joo-hyuk refused, telling her to stay. He asked to stop arguing in order to save energy, since the fight would begin in 5 seconds, and in the afternoon he would face the eye of the Great Forest. The battle began, and Kim Joo-hyuk rushed forward. He quickly found Team White Lotus, surprised by their reaction, but defeated them in 10 minutes, knocking them out of the competition. The hero team, noticing traces of mana, decided that Valhalla would attack them first. Jayar ordered to hold the magic shield. Melissa strengthened it, and the rest strengthened the defense. They were surprised that only one person, Kim Joo-hyuk, was attacking, and they wondered whether such preparation was necessary. But knowing his power, they remained on guard. Suddenly the magic disappeared, and they thought the enemy had left. After removing the shield, they didn't notice that Kim Joo-hyuk was above them. He jumped down from above, attacked, and in a few minutes put everyone on the ground. Noting that it would be unwise to fight back with a clot of mana in such a situation, the heroes also dropped out, and Kim Joo-hyuk, satisfied, headed towards the eye of the Great Forest. In the observation room, the Valhalla representative was shocked. Kim Joo-hyuk finished the team battle in 23 minutes, 20 of which were spent on the road. This threw the schedule into disarray, and no one knew what to do. Lee Sang-cheol explained that according to the rules, the next stage is possible on the same day if there is time, and suggested discussing this with teachers from other academies. He asked Chief Lee to report the results after the discussion. Lee Sang-cheol understood Kim Joo-hyuk's motives, knowing how long the eye of the Great Forest would take, and found his action unthinkable. Jack Rover, the hero's instructor, agreed that his team was fine with it, but wanted to discuss it with the White Lotus. He admitted that Kim Joo-hyuk is a real monster, and that resting won't change the outcome. Lee Sang-cheol suggested starting with negotiations with the White Lotus. In the Valhalla break room, So-yeon, calling Kim Joo-hyuk abnormal, was angry that he did everything alone even though she was appointed as the team leader. Her efforts seemed futile to her, especially after losing to Aaron in the individual fight. She heard that Aaron studied under Kim Joo-hyuk and wondered if her success was because of him. Soyeon decided that she could put aside her pride and learn from him too. They entered the room, announcing that the survival stage in the Eye of the Great Forest had been postponed until today, at 1300 hours. Kim Joo-hyuk stood up and said that he would go to Oko alone, and it would be every man for himself. If problems arise, you can call for help. Soyeon was indignant. Valhalla had already won the previous stages, and even the minimum points would not change the outcome. She reminded him that Oko was a separate environment, but Kim Joo-hyuk insisted. At the gates of the labyrinth, a representative of Valhalla announced the beginning of the survival stage. He explained that the Eye of the Great Forest is an installation of a real forest with incessant rain and dense vegetation where weak monsters live. The main threats are rain and vegetation. Participants must survive for 5 hours. The less exposure to the environment, the higher the score. Conflicts within the team are prohibited. The test has begun. The mercenaries received notification that Valhalla was in position. They were hiding in an abandoned warehouse. Alia, noticing the students in the heart of the labyrinth, said it was time to move on. There were 2 people maintaining the magic at the main gate, and they needed to be eliminated. The mercenaries teleported, and all the cameras in the surveillance room went out of order. Lee Sangcheol asked the guards if the gate post was responding, but there was no connection. He informed Chief Lee that the students were in danger and the teachers had to enter the maze. The hero team entered the eye. One of the girls, having gotten wet in the rain, felt unwell and was afraid of catching a cold, which could remove her from the test. Jair suggested building a canopy out of large leaves and strong branches, and he himself began to dig a hole. Suddenly a portal appeared from which mercenaries emerged. One with a sword approached Jair, calling him Kim Ju-hyuk, and told him not to resist. Jair replied that he was not Kim Ju-hyuk. Alia explained that she teleported them to the source of strong magic, since there was no other way to find the target. Jair noticed the black magic and suspected that they were villains. The mercenary ordered the witness to be removed. Jair, concentrating his destruction magic, declared that villains had no place in the competition and attacked, but was instantly stabbed. Jair, stabbed with a knife, did not understand how he was attacked, assuming that it was the work of a double. The mercenary confirmed his guess and attacked from the front, after which Jair fell dead. Alia scolded Logan, telling him to clean up after himself, and suggested using concealment to finish things faster. Logan began attacking the rest of the hero team. Meanwhile, Kim Ju-hyuk, running through the forest, received a notification from the Eye of the Great Forest. To complete the task, he needed to find a wooden sword in Madagaya Ran's house. He wondered, is there really a home in the labyrinth, other than the greenery? Suddenly, he saw a girl screaming at the sight of the corpses of her comrades and mercenaries. Kim Ju-hyuk came out from behind her, noticing the villains. They were glad that the prey had come by itself, assuming that he had come running to the screams. The mercenaries believed that slow killing was their goal. Kim Ju-hyuk told the blonde girl to stop the bleeding of her friends since they were still alive, and the mercenaries did not plan a quick death, counting on blood loss. He said that he would deal with the freaks because they had no right to be here, which gave him a free hand. Logan mockingly asked if he was telling stories on the verge of death, adding that the only exit was destroyed and the drones were not working, so the instructors would not arrive anytime soon. He asked how much time they had. Kim Ju-hyuk replied that it was no more than an hour, and became angry. Because of the mercenaries, he only had an hour left for the mission, which infuriated him so much that he was ready to tear them apart. Logan and his doppelganger attacked, but Kim Ju-hyuk instantly disappeared behind them and struck, knocking Logan back. He then attacked the remaining mercenaries who were watching the fight, and all 3 fell next to each other. Kim Ju-hyuk told the blonde to use magic to stop the bleeding, and if that didn't work, to run west where the students of Valhalla would help. The girl began to concentrate magic in her hands, trying to do something. Logan, exhausted, stood up while his comrades were unconscious. Kim Ju-hyuk said that before he died, he wanted to find out who hired them. Logan was surprised that he was asking a mercenary and called him an amateur. Kim Ju-hyuk remarked that it was strange if they came without a purpose. Logan, calling him a freak, said that he couldn't get away this time, and, finding himself behind him, swung his sword. The protagonist dodged, mockingly asking why Logan continued to cowardly attack from behind, and offered to show a worthy surprise attack. He pounced with his sword, struck, and when Logan ran out of breath, asked again about the customer. Logan simply replied that he would not allow himself to be laughed at. Kim Ju-hyuk stated that he made a choice, swung, and finally killed him. In the observation room, the instructors arrived at the scene where the students had already saved several injured people using healing magic. Lee Sangcheol immediately asked what happened. The students said they were attacked by three unknown individuals, a man and two women, whom they identified as Samsal, a group of mercenaries. The instructor asked where they were now, and the students pointed to the dead bodies of Olia and the others lying on the ground. Kim Joo-hyuk had already dealt with them, demonstrating incredible strength, and the area looked like it had recently been irrigated with blood. Jae-yar, still under the impression, said that while he was half asleep, he saw the silhouette of Kim Joo-hyuk fighting, and it was amazing. He couldn't even get close to the mercenaries, and the main character defeated them alone. Jae-yar admitted that he overestimated himself, considering himself stronger than others, while Kim Joo-hyuk was a special case. Choi Jung-seok supported him, saying it was not his fault. Lee Sang-cheol, noticing the absence of the third attacker, asked if Kim Joo-hyuk had dragged her away. At that moment, the protagonist returned, throwing Olia's severed head, and said that he had found out who was pulling the strings. He promised to tell everything after the test, but for now, he asked the instructors to prepare for the transportation of the wounded to the hospital, and the students to report what happened to the White Lotus Association. The competition is over. At the Valhalla dorm, Kim Joo-hyuk returned and lay down on his bed, tired but happy. Barsha suggested that fatigue was due to a large expenditure of mana in a short period of time. Kim Joo-hyuk agreed, noting that his mana reserves had increased, and he immediately tried out the new technique. It was difficult, but he coped with the task. When Olia was still alive, he asked what powers she possessed, without asking about her origin. He assumed that she was the support in their trio, since her abilities did not involve killing. Olia refused to answer, but he pinned her down and noticed that she could create and move between spaces. She remained silent, confirming his guess. Kim Joo-hyuk proposed a deal. If she helped find one thing, she would avoid punishment. Thanks to her, the task was easier. Barch asked why he promised Olia freedom but left her dead. Kim Joo-hyuk explained that she should have named the person who ordered the attack and he wouldn't have touched her. Olia revealed that their group, Samsal, were monotheists and the customer was Rockdeal Ventric, as expected. Kim Joo-hyuk planned to report this to the media again to put pressure on the Ventrics. He was sure that he would figure it out further, since he had the sphere. A notification appeared in front of him. In a dream, he would encounter lost memories. Barsh noted that their restoration could return some of their abilities and advised them to sleep. Kim Joo-hyuk didn't believe that memories could disappear forever and wondered what awaited him in his sleep. As he fell asleep, he saw his past life. Stones were falling on him. One hit him on the head, causing him to forget half of the past. A black silhouette appeared before him, declaring that it would take away his name and the world he protected. The dream was cut short, and Kim Joo-hyuk woke up in fear, not understanding if it was true. He asked Barch if he remembered anything. The demon replied that it seemed he was a tiger. Barch explained that in his past life he was a tiger. The protagonist asked if the demon remembered what it looked like, but Barch replied that he did not remember the details, only a useless memory of a tiger, and did not know the name. Suddenly, a notification appeared. Ahala Alifridi's Great Palace Office, Johnny's secret room. Time to face the truth. Kim Joo-hyuk decided that after training, he would ask Lilia about the Ahala Grand Palace, hoping that it was related to his memories. At the gym, Oh Se-hyuk was working out when So-yeon approached him, asking why he was there. He replied that it was she who should explain her presence. So-yeon admitted that she was driven by pride, but she envies Kim Joo-hyuk. Oh Se-hyuk clarified that he does weightlifting not because of him, but out of habit. So-yeon was jealous because she lost to Aaron, who destroyed her magic with her sword, stopping 3 blows. Today's defeat of Aren did not surprise her, but it humiliated her. She noticed how Aaron had become stronger since the entrance ceremony thanks to Kim Joo-hyuk. So-yeon reproached herself. She only trained magic and swordsmanship, ignoring strength training, which is what Aaron's family did not do, which allowed her to develop quickly. Oh Se-hyuk advised to approach Kim Joo-hyuk and not him. Soyeon, realizing that she couldn't wait any longer, decided to talk to the protagonist directly. She wanted to ask to be trained like Aaron, but they were interrupted by Lee Sang-cheol. He told Kim Joo-hyuk to come to him after training, since the person who wanted to kill him was waiting for a meeting. This was the only chance to see him. Kim Joo-hyuk, realizing this, left without finishing the conversation. Soyeon, embarrassed by yet another interruption, was ready to sink into the ground. As he left, Kim Joo-hyuk told her that if she wanted to train, she should ask Arin for a schedule, and if Soyeon showed progress, he might start teaching her. Arin approached Soyeon, offering to help, and began to explain the schedule. Kim Joo-hyuk went to see Lee Sang-cheol and asked who wanted to see him. The instructor assumed he should guess and pointed to the small hall. The protagonist immediately understood and, upon entering, saw Rockdeal Ventric, who suddenly fell to his knees, apologizing and asking to save him. Kim Joo-hyuk asked Lee Sang-cheol what happened to Rockdeal Ventric. The instructor replied that he should understand what crimes he committed, including 2 attempted murders of Kim Joo-hyuk. The family found out about this, and now the media is everywhere talking about attempts on the lives of Valhalla students. Kim Joo-hyuk asked why Rockdeal needed his help, if the head of the Ventric family, Adelia, could once again make a lot of promises and disappear. Lee Sang-cheol explained that the family did not officially disown Rockdeal, but exiled him along with his entire family tree, including his father. So Rockdeal stands before him, begging for forgiveness. Kim Joo-hyuk noticed that since Rockdeal had already been banished, all he could do was serve his sentence, and asked what he needed to be saved from. Rockdeal shouted that everything could be fixed, since the situation had escalated due to Kim Joo-hyuk's testimony, and asked to make it all disappear. The main character refused. Rockdeal begged, assuring him that he sincerely repented and would not interfere in his life anymore. But Kim Joo-hyuk said that he did not need him to change. Rockdeal, surprised, asked if he needed money, but was refused. Then he proposed the girl, Uriah, calling her the heiress of the palace family from England, and said that she would raise his status. He pushed her forward, pointing to the glowing seal on her neck, the proof of her belonging to him, which he was willing to hand over. Kim Joo-hyuk was outraged that Rockdeal considered people as things. Lee Sang-cheol, observing, realized that there was a forbidden magical seal on Uriah's neck that forced her to obey orders. He noted that in ancient times, people like Rockdeal branded people when they bought and sold them. Kim Joo-hyuk concentrated magic in his hand and removed the seal from Uriah. She was delighted. The protagonist asked Lee Sang-cheol if he could gently break a couple of Rockdeal's ribs. The instructor replied that he was obliged to stop violence between students, but since Rockdeal was a criminal and no longer Ventric, he was willing to turn a blind eye. Rockdeal, hearing this, asked to be patient. But Kim Joo-hyuk punched him, and he flew into the corner of the room, covered in blood. On his way home, Kim Joo-hyuk talked to Barche. He admitted that he had never been so close to death and had never experienced such anger. Barche noted that 300 years ago he would have crushed Rockdeal's head. The protagonist remembered a student who was considered cattle because of the seal, and Uriah reminded him of him, causing anger. Suddenly, Uriah ran up, explaining that she was confused and could not speak, but was very grateful for her release. Kim Joo-hyuk told her to forget about gratitude and live freely. Uriah burst into tears, and he went home. The next day after class, at the Valhalla Campus Cafe, Lilia told Kim Joo-hyuk that the Ahala Grand Palace was in China. Lilia told Kim Joo-hyuk that the Ahala Grand Palace belonged to the White Lotus Association, a school that participated in the inter-school competition. The protagonist was surprised that he would have to deal with them, since entering their labyrinth without permission is illegal. He wondered why he needed to ask permission at all, when in the past people had puzzled over how animals had gotten in there without restrictions. He could have destroyed the labyrinth, but he didn't want to mess with the White Lotus. Kim Joo-hyuk asked Lilia how to get there. She replied that you probably need to be a student at their school, but advised not to rush, since soon. At that moment, she suddenly began to cough. She was outraged that Kim Joo-hyuk was listening with open ears and not sharing information. Lilia offered a deal. He would tell her 3 things, and she would share the information. Kim Joo-hyuk, without answering, got up from the sofa and left. Lily called out to him, agreeing to tell him everything for free. He came back and sat down at the table. Lilia, warning that it was a secret, announced that in the 2nd semester, the world competitions would be held in the Great Palace of Ahala. Kim Joo-hyuk asked if the teachers knew about this, but Lilia clarified that they did not yet. When asked how she knew, she cited her source, adding that it would be a world-class inter-school competition, unlike the Korean one, where only Korea, China, and the United States participate. The protagonist was annoyed that the 2nd semester was too long a wait, and asked if it was possible to get there earlier. Lily replied that she needed to check with the White Lotus Association, which owned the labyrinth, about legal methods, but she didn't know who to contact. She then asked Kim Joo-hyuk to help with a task at the World Monster Research Society for 1 day. They went to North London, where Lily pointed out a large building. Kim Joo-hyuk was angry that they had come all the way for this, but Lilia explained that it was only for a day and they could extend the tour until Monday. He accused her of abusing her teaching authority and asked about her plans. Inside, he needed to certify documents. He went into the room where he killed a wild boar with a sword under the supervision of people writing something down. The notification confirmed the boar's validation. After killing a few more, Kim Joo-hyuk, tired, asked Lilia why she was making him work overtime when he only had to kill 3 monsters. He noticed that everyone around him was staring and acting rudely, asking if she knew them. Lilia explained that, in a way, yes. They were following an outdated monster hunting manual, and her work had destroyed their foundations. Kim Joo-hyuk asked if the validation method that requires a sword is outdated and why it is looked at strangely if it is a tradition of the association. Lily replied that they were afraid of change. Their worldview had become ossified due to nepotism and inertia at the top. She added that without public recognition, her reports mean nothing, and the association is obsessed with the perfect monster hunting strategy. Kim Joo-hyuk said that he had helped enough, and now it was her turn. Lilia agreed, noting that coming was the right decision. The chairman of the White Lotus often comes here, and Kim Joo-hyuk would definitely attract her attention. They heard a female voice outside the door calling him. So Yeon came in, glad to meet you. She asked Kim Joo-hyuk to take care of one person. Lily, noticing that the conversation had become serious, decided that they could continue without her, and left the room. So Yeon sat down opposite Kim Joo-hyuk and began to explain. She was the chairwoman of the White Lotus Association and a member of the Sol family, which was the first to rise after the era of destruction. They founded White Lotus, training many talented contractors. However, a girl appeared in their family, whom So-yeon called a natural disaster. At the age of 13, she surpassed experienced contractors, dealt with all the members of the Solin family guild, including the leader, and, deciding that the outside world had nothing to teach her, locked herself in the Sol family's training hall. Kim Joo-hyuk assumed that he was being asked to take care of her. So Yeon confirmed, but clarified that it was none of his personal business. He asked why she chose him, when her aura showed that she was strong enough to handle it. So Yeon praised his insight, noting that the aura concealment magic didn't work. She explained that, firstly, the girl's fighting style is based on physical strength, and secondly, she, like Kim Joo-hyuk, is 17 years old. So Yeon watched him and was sure that losing to a peer would destroy the girl's pride. She asked for this favor, adding that if he had not come, she would have written a letter. Kim Joo-hyuk asked if he was working for free and if there would be a reward. So Yeon assured that the chairman of the White Lotus does not ask for favors without compensation. He interrupted, saying that he didn't need the money but he wanted to get to one place. If she helped, he would agree. They traveled to China on a private jet and found themselves in front of the White Lotus building. So Yeon asked if he was free until Monday, respecting his time, and added that to enter the palace, it was enough to enter correctly. Kim Joo-hyuk confirmed that he is single. She said that there would be no difficulties since they controlled the labyrinth and offered to enter. At the entrance, he noticed a crowd of people and asked if the request was connected with the girl's personal fate. So Yeon replied that it was partly true. This girl was creating problems by testing the students and teachers in order to check her potential. So Yeon wanted Kim Joo-hyuk to take her down a peg or two so that the Sol family and the White Lotus could reach new heights. He replied that he understood everything and praised the reliability of the White Lotus in her hands. So Yeon brought him to the room where the magic seal led to the Sol family's secret training hall, and told him to sort it out once and for all. Before teleporting, Kim Joo-hyuk asked the girl's name. So Yeon replied, Yeon Lan. After teleporting, he saw Yen Lan, who furiously asked who he was and whether his family had sent him to drive her out. She told him to get out. Kim Joo-hyuk noticed that she had a difficult character and, calling her an arrogant blockhead, attacked her with his fists. Lan blocked the attack and attacked back, calling him an idiot and asking why he underestimated her and started a fight. Kim Joo-hyuk asked if she was ready to meet him, which made her even more angry. He continued to attack with his fists, and she, unable to fight back, did not understand who he was. The protagonist replied that he was a 17-year-old high school student who underestimated her. Yeon-lan was amazed that she couldn't hurt Kim Joo-hyuk. Deciding to retreat and counterattack, she tried to change tactics, but he intercepted her movement, asking where she was going, and punched her in the stomach. He found it funny. In a split second, she shifted her center of gravity to soften the impact, which impressed him. Kim Joo-hyuk noted that even his students in their past lives could not control their bodies like that. Yeon-lan was truly talented. She didn't believe that a 17-year-old schoolboy was on her level, and, burning with anger, she wanted to deliver a powerful blow. He noticed that she was acting cheerful and decided to throw her off balance. Meanwhile, So-yeon watched the fight. A worker approached her, expressing doubts that a student from another school would be able to resist a White Lotus native, especially Yeon-lan. He apologized for his tactlessness, but asked if it was because of Yeon-lan's lack of magic that she lost to So-yeon in the past. She confirmed that she lost to Yeon-lan, even using magic, due to the significant difference in strength. It was years ago, and Yeon-lan certainly hadn't gotten any weaker. The worker asked why Kim Joo-hyuk was risking his life if he couldn't win. So Yeon replied that he, being an ordinary student, had accomplished the incredible by winning first place in the inter-school competition and would not give up so easily. Her goal is not to defeat Yeon-lan, but to destroy her pride. Yeon-lan continued to attack using various skills and was happy to have lured him into a trap. But Kim Joo-hyuk used a technique that injured her knee. She asked in a rage if he really had a stone for a head. He replied that her knee had just collapsed on him and he had hit it with his forehead, as if his forehead were harder than her kneecap. Yeon-lan couldn't believe that he blocked every attack without showing any weakness. She was angry that he was physically stronger, and feeling humiliated, she asked why he didn't use magic, demanding that they fight seriously. She concentrated all the magic around herself. Kim Joo-hyuk, noticing her anger, called her cute and said that it was time to crush her pride. His blue aura began to concentrate, and Yeon-lan, throwing away her tricks, decided to finish the fight with one blow. She lunged at him, aiming her fist at his face, but he dodged, leaning back. After thanking her for the game, he delivered a final blow to her stomach, calling her a real monster. Turning to the camera, he said that, as requested, he had dealt with her in a fair fight. Kim Joo-hyuk, having fulfilled the request, pulled Yeon Lan outside, into the space outside the training hall. So Yeon, the chairwoman of the White Lotus Association, watched in amazement, not believing that he had actually accomplished this task. She asked if he was injured, to which Kim Joo-hyuk replied that he didn't know how Yeon Lan was feeling, but he himself was completely fine, without a scratch. So Yeon, still impressed, asked if it was difficult. Kim Joo-hyuk admitted that Yeon Lan is not the weakest opponent, but to be honest, he is a little disappointed with her resistance. With these words, he grabbed her by the hair, and Yeon Lan, weakened, collapsed to the ground. Seeing So Yeon in front of her, she became furious. And Lan, breathing heavily, sarcastically asked how she was breathing in the fresh air, and reminded her that she remembered their agreement. She knew that Kim Joo-hyuk was interested in the Ahala Grand Palace, and without wasting any time, she allowed him to go there immediately, after asking if he was okay with the offer. He enthusiastically replied that it sounded great, and suggested that they not delay but go right away. While they were preparing, Yeon Lan watched them with a gaze full of anger and determination. A worker standing nearby worriedly offered to give her medical assistance, but Yeon Lan, frozen in place, only asked the name of the one who defeated her. Upon learning that it was Kim Joo-hyuk, she declared that she would remember that name for a long time, calling him one of the strongest people in the world and vowing to fight him again, feeling a surge of strength from defeat. They entered the Grand Palace of Ahala, and Kim Joo-hyuk curiously asked what kind of place it was and if it was really a labyrinth. So Yeon confirmed that the palace was an intricate labyrinth built into the castle's supporting structures, and if he could avoid encounters with the living armor, exploration would not be difficult. He asked how much time he had, and So Yeon replied that it was about 5 hours, but if that wasn't enough, he could come back tomorrow. Satisfied, Kim Joo-hyuk stepped into the labyrinth. As soon as he entered, dozens of living armor pounced on him. Although he planned to avoid conflict, he was forced to defend himself. The battle took only a few minutes. He quickly destroyed all opponents, but did not know where to look for Alfredi Johnny's office, having already searched more than 20 rooms. At that moment, a notification popped up. Alfredi Johnny's office. Find him and face the truth. The other rooms were empty, and he looked around and noticed an office on the right. As he entered, he felt that he was on the right track, seeing a familiar painting, but he doubted whether it really belonged to Alfredi or whether the owner was someone else. Barch, his demon, interrupted his thoughts, confidently stating that the owner was indeed Alfredi Johnny, since the painting was signed with his name. Kim Joo-hyuk asked how Barchi understood this. The demon replied that it was difficult to explain, as if the information had come through some kind of script, perhaps as part of his lost memories. Knowing that he needed to find the secret room, Kim Joo-hyuk decided that examining every little thing would take too much time. To speed up the search, he broke open the nightstand and discovered a hatch underneath it. As he went down into the basement, he saw nothing and wondered if this was leading to hell. A notification surfaced confirming that he had entered the secret room of Alfredi Johnny's office in the Great Palace of Ahala, and all the conditions had been met. Below, he noticed a stranger in a witch's hat who greeted him joyfully, introducing herself as the Guide, a pseudonym since her name had been taken away. Kim Joo-hyuk remembered his dream where a black silhouette took his name and asked if her name was taken away too. She confirmed. He noted that at first he thought it was nonsense, comparing the name to a lollipop, and asked how one could take away a name. The guide explained that the name is the basis of life force, determining talents, hobbies, and achievements. Good or bad, a name is everything, and when combined with abilities, it gives incredible power. The master of the labyrinth steals such names, appropriating their power. Kim Joo-hyuk asked what happens to a person who has lost his name. The conductor replied that he had already met such people. They are called constellations. Kim Joo-hyuk, lost in thought about his reincarnation, began to suspect that it made him an exception in the Master of the Labyrinth's game. The guide, as expected, knew everything, like Barcha, and with a slight mockery asked if he still doubted her, since it was she, according to her, who allowed him to be reborn and sent the notifications. She immediately clarified that she was joking. She learned about his reincarnation through the same notifications. Kim Joo-hyuk, surprised that she was also seeing the notifications, demanded that she stop beating around the bush and tell him who was trying to take his name from the Tower of Destruction. The guide explained that it was the Master of the Labyrinth, whose purpose was to move the Tower of Destruction into his labyrinth to feed on the power of high-level names, and his actions were completely consistent with his essence. Kim Joo-hyuk skeptically noted that it was strange. How could the Master of the Labyrinth move the entire tower if his task was to control the labyrinth? And where did he get such power from? He began to suspect that the world he called Earth was itself a labyrinth, and asked the guide not to tell him that he had figured it out himself. She didn't force him to believe it, but she asked if she would lie about such a thing. Kim Joo-hyuk agreed with her logic, elaborating that the master moved the tower to absorb names and accumulate karma through crises such as defeating monsters, saving villages, or using chaos for his own purposes. She confirmed, not everyone becomes a constellation after having their name stolen, but karma is the only measure that can elevate a person. Kim Joo-hyuk wondered. His disciples who had enough karma could also become constellations, and their reincarnation could possibly be a variable that would give them a chance to beat the master at his own game. He assumed that someone other than the master had arranged their meeting through notifications to help him. The conductor agreed that it was not the master, but admitted that she did not know who exactly, since this information was not available to her. Kim Joo-hyuk thought and remarked that since she had reincarnated with someone's help, they were probably related. The conductor, without denying it, said that this was an opportunity that could not be missed. She handed him the ring in which she had concentrated her power, explaining that time was short and that this ring would play a key role. He asked why there was little time and whether she could tell everything. The guide replied that despite the disclosure of information, the master of the labyrinth was still pursuing her. But the conditions were met, and their meetings would become more frequent. After saying goodbye, she told me not to lose the ring, snapped her fingers, and disappeared. Kim Joo-hyuk, left alone, found her manner of communication rude. He was furious at the master of the labyrinth, who had stolen his name and was preventing him from living. Not knowing what kind of ring she gave him, he decided that it would strengthen him, and it was time to use the last of the storage stones to return to his former strength, despite its incomplete restoration. Meanwhile, on an island in the North Pacific Ocean, Hannibal, the leader of the Il-Shinju faction and the Dragon King, read the news. Valhalla's disciple, Kim Joo-hyuk, single-handedly destroyed the Samsal mercenaries. In anger, he smashed the tablet screen with his fists. While keeping an eye on Kim Joo-hyuk, he knew that he had defeated Choi Jin-jong, who had signed a contract with the Constellation, and even survived an assassination attempt ordered by the Ventrix for next to nothing. The three mercenaries failed, as if they had been robbed. George, the leader of the privileged race, called Hannibal preoccupied. He reminded her that he had told her to knock on the door, but Georg replied that otherwise he would have become even more angry. He confirmed that because of Kim Joo-hyuk, they lost Daiser, the Ventric informant who failed the task by spilling the beans to a schoolboy. Georg wanted to abandon the case to avoid leaks, and sent Daiser to the prison tower. Hannibal suggested getting rid of the rest, but Georg, worried, asked not to get involved with Kim Joo-hyuk, who had become the target of the first cult. Reckless bastards who do not consider themselves decent but have principles. They probably wiped out Logan's squad. Hannibal knew about this and understood that it was not their job. If they interfere, the Il-Shinju will become their target, and all they can do is wait. Kim Ju-hyuk, meeting strangers in the Valhalla dorm, asked who they were, wondering if they were fearless or just stupid to be there. One of the strangers recalled a conversation with Adelia, the head of the Ventric family, who confirmed their readiness for the mission. Adelia, after listening, ordered to speed up the preparations, clarifying that the changes concerned Kim Ju-hyuk and demanded to be prepared for any surprises. She asked if they had found contractors capable of creating subspace. The stranger replied that several such specialists had been assembled and that all team members had been personally selected by the Ventric family, and that a leak to the press was out of the question. Adelia asked if he had taken care of her request. He confirmed that a special storage stone with a bottomless amount of magic had been prepared for sacralization. Adelia nodded, stating that it was now her turn to act, and told Deacon to stay with the group and lead the elimination team once completed. Deacon, after asking if they were preparing a new constellation, asked if she really thought it was necessary. Adelia asked irritably if he really thought she was afraid of some schoolboy. She concentrated magic around herself, but Deacon reassured her, saying it was just a precaution. He mentioned that a silent constellation had recently responded, which alerted Adelia. She wanted to use it to find out the reason for its sudden activity, although the constellation's silence remained a mystery. Deacon loudly ordered the contact team to prepare for space distortion. They touched the floor, and a subspace appeared around Kim Ju-hyuk. He looked around, surprised, and said that it made sense. If they had been seen, they would have been caught. He asked how long they had been preparing and whether it was the idea of the Ventric leader. The deacon, surprised at his knowledge, asked how he knew. Kim Ju-hyuk replied that it was obvious. Among his enemies, only the Ventrics did not use black magic, and if not them, then who? The Pope. Deacon stated that there was no need for the attackers to hide since he understood everything, and called in the liquidation team. They removed their hoods, concentrated their power, and surrounded him. Kim Ju-hyuk sarcastically asked if they were ashamed to gather a crowd against a schoolboy. Deacon replied that they didn't care, they were just following the leader's orders. The protagonist noticed that they had neither shame nor conscience. Deacon shouted to be removed, and the subordinates pounced on Kim Ju-hyuk. He easily counterattacked, mocking them for not having been taught how to swing sabers properly. Fighting back with dignity, he ordered that the cannons be followed, as he had not yet caught his breath. Nobody understood who he was. Kim Ju-hyuk said that they got him and continued to fight back, noting that their preparation was not enough, but he would prepare better next time. He delivered a powerful blow, knocking Deacon to the floor. He mentally apologized to the chief. Adelia suddenly appeared, stepping over the corpses of her warriors, including Deacon. Kim Ju-hyuk was surprised that the head of the Ventrics herself showed up. The liquidation team, superior even to experienced contractors, was destroyed, which seemed unthinkable. Adelia grabbed her sword and decided to attack, saying that Kim Ju-hyuk should be proud. Not everyone gets the honor of seeing their family's sacred relic before they die. He mockingly asked her if she was proud of this fillet knife, and if she even knew what pride was. Enraged, Adelia called him a loser and attacked him with a sword. Accumulation stones appeared in her team's hands, and power began to be sucked out of her sword. Adelia couldn't believe her eyes, not understanding what was happening. Suddenly, a notification appeared, addressing Kim Ju-hyuk. Their strength had been completely drained. Kim Ju-hyuk watched as Adelia, the head of the Ventric family, stood frozen in confusion, unable to move, wondering why the sanctification had activated involuntarily. Her elimination team, who were still conscious, were frozen both mentally and physically. But Kim Ju-hyuk himself felt completely normal, as if what was happening did not concern him. At that moment, a notice addressed to the teacher appeared in front of him, and immediately a creature in a raven's robe appeared, slowly removing its mask. Kim Joo-hyuk instantly recognized her. It was his student from his past life. He remembered their first meeting when he called her a brat. Then she was chained, her eyes burning with hatred for the whole world. The girl, noticing his gaze, sharply told him not to pretend that he understood her and asked what she could possibly know about him. Despite the gaps in his memory, Kim Joo-hyuk knew one thing. He himself had once been a slave. In his youth, unable to resist, he was kidnapped by a slave trader and lived in captivity due to shackles and a magical restraint placed on him. He asked the girl if she wanted freedom. She, surprised, replied that he, as a former slave, should understand her feelings, and asked why he was asking stupid questions. The spell seal on her neck made freedom an impossible dream. She told him to get out, not knowing how he got there, and warned him that the slave trader would be back soon. Kim Joo-hyuk explained that the limiter can be removed in two ways, by the owner's death or by his decision. But the first option does not always work, and, apparently, she was unlucky. The girl, shocked, asked why she was still not free if her master was dead. Kim Joo-hyuk suggested freeing her by holding on to the shackles and imitating the magical components of the restraint. Although this kind of control was not his specialty, removing one seal was not difficult for him. He grabbed her, thinking that one day he would gut every slave trader on Earth. In a few seconds he destroyed the shackles, and the girl, overjoyed, felt how the fetters that tormented her disappeared. Kim Joo-hyuk told her that now everything depended on her. She had found the freedom she dreamed of. He asked what she planned to do. The girl replied that she had no one. The slave trader had deprived her of her home and family. Then he said that he was going on a journey to destroy all those who thought themselves superior to others, as he had done with this carrion today, and was going to repeat it 1,000 times. He invited her to join him to exterminate slave traders. She agreed, calling him teacher, but he demanded politeness without informality and told her to remember this. The girl interrupted, asking him to state his name so she would know how to address him. He introduced himself as Kim Hyun-oh. She joyfully repeated his name and said her own, which remained hidden from the audience. Now, in the present, Kim Joo-hyuk remembered her. She became a constellation, and he knew this brat better than the ventric riffraff, but he couldn't remember her name, only the nickname Fool. He understood what the guide was talking about, but he couldn't do anything about it. The girl interrupted his thoughts and said that before celebrating their reunion, they needed to deal with the relic in Adelia's hands. She took it, concentrated her power, and asked the teacher whether to kill Adelia. Kim Joo-hyuk replied that he had a better idea. The next day, Ligon looked at his computer screen in shock. The Ventric family had received a sponsorship offer of 5 billion won to personally support Kim Joo-hyuk. Kim Joo-hyuk, upon seeing the message about the 5 billion won sponsorship from the Ventric family, was shocked, as was Li Gong, who was approached by Lee Sang-cheol to discuss the situation. Lee Sang-cheol asked him what he thought about it, because there had to be a reasonable explanation for why now, why such a sum, and why specifically to Kim Joo-hyuk. Ligon recalled that the protagonist had conflicts with the Ventric family, and speculated that they were trying to cover up the scandal with money, as they had done with Daiser, when they used their sponsors' connections to protect the reputation of Rockdale Ventric and the family. But now, Rockdale was banished, and the line was drawn. If they had not disowned him, their reputation would have suffered even more. But the amount of 5 billion won seemed unusual, and the real reason for Kim Joo-hyuk's sponsorship remained a mystery. Moreover, they were not sure whether he would accept the money, because he could simply reject everyone. Deciding to find out for themselves, they asked Kim Joo-hyuk if he would agree to accept the sponsorship. He agreed, wondering why Ligon was even asking, and wondering if there was any reason to refuse such an amount. Ligon started to explain, but Kim Joo-hyuk interrupted him and was about to leave. He was stopped and informed that, according to Valhalla's rules, with this sponsorship, he could move into a higher-class dorm. Kim Joo-hyuk replied that he was satisfied with his room, but he would think about moving later. Ligon, puzzled, did not understand why he had refused the handouts last time, but now he agreed so easily. Deciding that the academy had also received funds, he was going to sort it out. Meanwhile, Kim Joo-hyuk's student, a constellation nicknamed Fool, asked what to do with Adelia. He ordered her to be brought to consciousness, because he had a better idea than murder. Sitting down on his knees in front of Adelia, he said that she seemed to have warmed up to his former student, and asked what to do. The student explained that she founded the Ventric family to serve him, and he can control their lives for his own interests. Adelia apologized to the star, quoting the family motto, "All for one," referring to the teacher. She confessed that she only now realized that Kim Joo-hyuk is her teacher, despite his different face, since his magical aura gives him away. Kim Joo-hyuk responded that there were enough questions and that Adelia should worry about herself. He remembered how the Ventrix had tormented him, and noted that killing them was too soft, but their power could be used. Managing them personally would be a hassle, and he asked how she was coping with the role of head. Adelia replied that in 4 years she had restored the family's strength, making it the most prestigious in Britain. Kim Joo-hyuk told her to continue in the same spirit, supporting his activities, and warned that if she thought of harming him again, she should remember the constellation behind him. The student assured that she would personally ensure that this did not happen again, and went into the space where constellations could materialize, which requires a huge amount of magic and dozens of storage stones. She explained that because of using this ability, she needed to rest. Kim Joo-hyuk was surprised that even the constellation was imperfect. The student replied that the opportunity to see the teacher's reincarnation was worth the price. Before leaving, she added that it seemed that he was not the only student of his who had become a constellation, and their meeting was inevitable. After asking for forgiveness, she disappeared. Kim Joo-hyuk thought another one of his students had become a constellation, and he suspected who it was. The meeting with Barch and Dorinda, 2 constellations, happened thanks to notifications, although with Dorinda it was by chance. He decided that it was pointless to look for all the constellations. There were too many of them. At that moment he called Barch, asking what he was doing. The demon replied that he was putting his thoughts in order. His memories end in the secret room, but after the visit to the basement, the subspace stopped working, and for a moment he remembered the concept of the name that the master of the labyrinth gave him. Kim Joo-hyuk returned to class and was lost in thought about the master of the labyrinth, who not only took his name, but also gave the name and power of the Tower of Destruction, Boss Barcha. The demon interrupted him, explaining that the master of the labyrinth had given him not only a name, but also a power that had changed his personality, forcing him to completely renounce his former self. However, now Barch has returned to his original essence. Kim Joo-hyuk wondered how this freak managed to give and take away names, influencing personalities, and asked how this was possible. Barch admitted that he didn't know, but considering that they lived in the Master's Labyrinth, he was capable of anything. On the way back home, Kim Joo-hyuk thought that it was sad, but the fact remained. The conductor mentioned that they would have a chance to counterattack. They just had to wait for the right moment. The next day, he met the conductor, bringing her a shining silver tray for food. Angrily, he asked why they always met during lunch and whether nothing was sacred to her. The conductor, embarrassed, apologized, not knowing that the tray was related to food, and asked if he had brought the ring. He confirmed that the ring was with him and asked how to use it, since it was not like the others. The guide told me to put on the ring and destroy the labyrinth. Kim Joo-hyuk clarified what labyrinth he was talking about, since there are almost no natural labyrinths left, and the existing ones belong to the owners. He asked how one could destroy someone else's labyrinth, and if she reminded him that the master of the labyrinth was creating a new one, calling it in his language a dungeon breakthrough or a catastrophe. Kim Joo-hyuk thought, a disaster is when monsters break out of a newborn labyrinth, leaving chaos behind. Long ago, even before reincarnation, they were crawling from everywhere, and there were no safe places. After reincarnation, the world stabilized and life became more orderly. He asked where and when the breakthrough would occur and how big it would be. The guide replied that in 3 months in Korea, but the scale is still unknown, since she was collecting information secretly from the master of the labyrinth, which limited her capabilities. Kim Joo-hyuk asked if the world is a labyrinth, then what are the labyrinths inside it? The guide explained that the master creates them to give and take names, adapting the human essence to his purposes before the appearance of the Tower of Destruction. He asked if he should solve all the problems of humanity with the ring. She confirmed that the boss of the labyrinth must be destroyed as he did before, by destroying the stones of the labyrinth, without the power of which he disappears. But this time, that approach won't work. He asked why, and the guide told him to put on the ring and defeat the boss. He demanded a rationale, and she explained that the master drew power from names, including hers and his, creating boss mazes at the core. By defeating the boss with the ring, Kim Joo-hyuk will regain the name taken away by the master. He asked if it made any difference if the master had hundreds of names. The guide replied that his goal was the adaptation of humanity, and their plan was not only to kill the boss, but also to clear the labyrinth. When the master realizes that his creation is destroyed, he will send the names to create disasters across the world, which will be the moment to absorb them, strengthening them. Kim Joo-hyuk asked how the names were different from the master. The conductor, surprised by his interest, explained that absorbing names does no harm if they belong to the master. Without a name, a person either becomes a saint or becomes attached to the master, losing the chance for reincarnation, remaining trapped. If Kim Joo-hyuk uses the power of the absorbed names, their owners will be freed. He didn't care, but he agreed, knowing that he would get his name back. The conductor promised to tell the exact location and date of the breakthrough, ordering a team to be assembled. He wondered why he needed a team if it was enough to kill the boss. She explained that the monsters that escaped from the labyrinth would remain and would have to be dealt with. She snapped her fingers and carried them into the dining room. Kim Joo-hyuk was angry that the guide had disappeared again with a snap, but he thought about it. Even in reincarnation, he traveled with the disciples, and such missions require time and resources. Deciding that new students were needed, he saw Yen Lan in front of him. Kim Joo-hyuk, noticing Yeon Lan at Valhalla Academy, asked in surprise what she was doing there. En Lan, thoughtfully rubbing her chin, replied that after their fight in the great palace of Valhalla, she reflected on her defeat and realized that she lost due to his superiority in strength and technique. Kim Joo-hyuk chuckled, noticing that she realized it too quickly, and sarcastically asked if she was a child prodigy. En Lan replied seriously that she thought they were similar. A person who amazed everyone with his talent was rare in the adult world, and she thought he was the same. Kim Joo-hyuk countered that, unlike her, he considered himself more of a hard worker than a genius. She agreed that she had thought so at first, too, but his movements that had amazed her were the result of many years of experience and hard training. At first, this made her angry, but then she came to terms with it, realizing that she lacked experience. En Lan came to the conclusion that a new fight with him would give her this experience, and begged him to arrange another sparring match, assuring him that she would definitely win now. Kim Joo-hyuk, unimpressed, advised her to enter the competition for gifted children and got ready to leave. En Lan, enraged, shouted that she had come all the way from China to fight, and demanded that they not brush her aside. He suggested that she take up something useful, such as martial arts. She replied that she had studied diligently until she was 6, then trained on her own. But in the lunar year, he had defeated her despite her control over the contractor's assistants. Yan-lan added that the contractors weren't too keen on her, and she was excluded from family training, forced to fight against adults, which hardened her skills. Kim Joo-hyuk, analyzing her words, noted the coincidence with So-yeon's story, but saw a problem. Yan-lan has talent, but, apart from fighting, she has nothing. He asked why she locked herself in the training room. Yan-lan explained that she was tired of everyone around her getting in her way, and although she was stronger than her clan, she had nothing to do. Now that she has met him, she has found a purpose to become stronger through battles without listening to her family's teachings. Kim Joo-hyuk refused to fight, which upset her. She insisted, not understanding why he was against it, since she, the heiress of the White Lotus family, had come all this way. He asked if she should sort out her family issues first, and asked her to let him go. Yan-lan begged for a fight, and he sighed and suggested that they fight not at the academy, but at the gym, where she happily followed. In the gym, they were surrounded by Valhalla students. Kim Joo-hyuk said that he would change his clothes and come back, asking Yan-lan to wait. Suddenly, Aaron, his student, approached him and asked suspiciously who this girl was. He explained that this was a mad woman from White Lotus, who had come from China for sparring, and he was going to deal with her quickly. Aaron, indignant, did not want to share the teacher, and Yan-lan, noticing her, asked if she wanted to fight too. Aaron refused. So Yeon, watching, guessed that the girls might be related based on their hair color and found the situation funny. At the training ground, Kim Joo-hyuk prepared for the fight, although he was counting on a private sparring session. He was surprised by the crowd of spectators and kept an eye on Yan-lan to make sure she didn't do anything strange. So Yeon, who was standing next to Aaron, noted that she was doing this for the sake of the company. Oh Se-hyuk said not to pay attention to him. Yan-lan, while warming up, stated that she was patiently waiting for the fight and had become stronger since their last meeting. Kim Joo-hyuk, remembering the guide's words about the need to assemble a team, asked if she had really become stronger and suggested fighting at full strength. If she loses, she will become his student. Yan-lan countered that she wanted to become stronger to defeat him, not to be his disciple. He replied that apprenticeship would give her that power, and began the fight, concentrating the energy in his fist. Yan-lan, hating the teachers, shouted at him not to dare think that she would lose. She fought back, and Kim Joo-hyuk noted that she had indeed become stronger. Although he blocked her blow, she, pleased, assured him that now he would not be able to cope. By concentrating her fiery energy, she created an aura so bright that the audience retreated. Her mana surpassed even that which Kim Joo-hyuk had shown in the recent competition, causing admiration. Could it be that the White Lotus had raised a monster? Yan-lan shouted as she attacked that one blow from her would kill him even if he blocked. Kim Joo-hyuk, taking a fighting stance, replied that he likes to solve problems face to face. Their fists collided, and despite all of Yan-lan's mana, she was thrown back. She couldn't understand where he got such strength from without magical skills. For the sake of revenge, she was ready to take another blow, but on the second blow he blocked and counterattacked. Yan-lan, fighting back, realized that she was losing again, unable to resist the teacher. Kim Joo-hyuk, pleased, noted that he now had another student. Kim Joo-hyuk, noticing how Yan-lan had woken up after her defeat, heard her start cursing herself for losing again. He praised her, noting that she had enough strength, and expressed surprise that she had recovered so quickly. A few days later, Yan-lan, still under the impression, asked if his words could be considered a compliment, but immediately added that less words, more action. She proposed a new fight without the use of magic, as in their first encounter, but acknowledged that the outcome would probably not change, and, as promised, agreed to become his apprentice. She enthusiastically asked if she was officially his first student. Kim Joo-hyuk smiled slightly and replied that this was not the case. Enlan was indignant, not believing that he already had students in his middle school. He clarified that this was not exactly the case, but did not explain. At this point, Aaron intervened, interrupting them, and stated that she was the first student since she started studying earlier. Kim Joo-hyuk looked at Aaron with a little pity, knowing that he was upsetting her, but even she wasn't the first on his list of students. He decided not to delve into the matter further, so as not to upset her even more. After listening to Aaron, Enlan became furious, feeling that she was being provoked into a conflict. She indignantly asked why Aaron considered herself the first student, and she confidently confirmed that it was true. Their argument was heating up. Both girls concentrated their auras, preparing for a confrontation. Kim Joo-hyuk, watching their quarrel, involuntarily plunged into memories of his past life before reincarnation, when he had warm feelings for his students, seeing them as lively and emotional. Walking up to Yonglan, he sternly told her to stop, explaining that Aaron had indeed become his student earlier, and asked her not to be rude to her sunbae. Enlan, still angry, stated that since she had a kohai, she should be more careful. Aaron, embarrassed but proud that the teacher recognized her as the #1 student, felt like a real sunbae and decided to endure Yonglan's attacks. Kim Joo-hyuk, seeing that the situation was getting out of control, told both of them to stop fooling around, noting that they had already beaten each other up pretty badly, and suggested that they take a rest. Yenlan admitted that the pain was not that bad, but asked where she could sleep, as she had not thought about housing, having flown from China just for the fight. So Yeon told her about Valhalla, which led her to learn about the academy. Kim Joo-hyuk was surprised by her impulsiveness, but remembered that the academy had given him a room in the upper-class dormitory and invited Yeon Lan to stay there temporarily. After the conversation, Kim Joo-hyuk wanted to quickly rest in his room, as the training had exhausted him, but thoughts about the new students did not leave him. So Yeon is currently focusing on developing her endurance, but she is still a long way from fencing training. On the other hand, Oh Se-hyuk trained on his own, showing little interest in instruction. Only Aaron and Yong-lan could help prevent the coming disaster. At that moment, he received a message from Adelia. He answered the call and she said she was looking into the donations he had requested, but was currently dealing with other important matters and wanted to report back to make sure everything was completed. Kim Joo-hyuk confirmed that he checked the scholarship fund this morning and asked Adelia to post a notice to recruit experienced contractors since a disaster was coming in 3 months. Adelia, stunned, asked where he got this information. He brushed it off, saying it didn't matter, but the changes in Korea would be significant. Adelia realized that the disaster would happen in Korea, and he confirmed it. She promised to contact the contractors through the Ventrix and the Korean Mehendi, but asked to keep it a secret. She then interrupted him by asking him to praise his patron constellation when it woke up, as it was ignoring her efforts, which upset her. She mentioned that after using enormous magical power, the constellation needed rest, and one day was not enough. Kim Joo-hyuk decided to discuss this the next day. After training in the Valhalla Hall, he gathered his students to work on endurance. Enlan, a new student, was exhausted to the point of barely breathing and complained that she almost died. Kim Joo-hyuk, on the other hand, praised her, noting that she held up better than he expected and thought that she would give up halfway through. Enlan, with shining eyes, declared that she would endure it because her cat honor was at stake. Kim Joo-hyuk realized that she had no problem with her stamina, but he suggested that she slow down a bit. At this point, So Yeon interrupted them, asking if Yong-lan would like to join their team. Aaron, standing behind Kim Joo-hyuk, noticed Seo Yeonhwa with surprise and couldn't understand why she looked so much like Yeon Lan. Seo Yeonhwa, irritated, turned to Yeon Lan, reproaching her for coming all the way from China to Valhalla without telling her mother, which was extremely irresponsible. Now it became clear to everyone that So Yeonhwa was her real mother, and not just a guardian, as Kim Joo-hyuk initially thought, suspecting her of being a shaman. Seo Yeonhwa, introducing herself as the head of the Seoul family, explained that she looks after Yeon Lan, while her younger sister, Seo Yeon, heads the White Lotus Association and also looks after her daughter. She explained that she had promised to contact her sister when Yonglan left the White Lotus Palace, but decided to postpone it to handle the situation herself. Seo Yeonhwa told her daughter to follow her, but Yeonlan, seething with anger, refused, saying that her mother never cared about her. She demanded that he stop calling her daughter and leave. Seo Yeonhwa explained that it was the constellation that made her leave, and was surprised that Yeonlan found out about it from the maid before she did. She urged her daughter to repent, noting that the constellation showed interest in her, giving her a chance to be noticed, and told her not to disgrace her. Enlan responded furiously, saying that her mother had always been a nuisance to her and demanded that she get out. She shouted that Valhalla was a place for Kim Joo-hyuk's disciples, not for the Seoul family or the White Lotus, and she had no intention of obeying. So Yeonhwa, keeping her cool, asked her daughter if she knew why she came without bodyguards to make everything clean. She concentrated the magical power in her hand and directed it at Yen Lan. She tried to contain her energy, not understanding what was happening. Seo Yeonhwa did not hold back and stated that she had no intention of being delicate. Enlan, shocked, asked if that was the whole point, and, refusing to hold back, rushed at her mother. She reminded that she had already challenged her last time and won, but now she was ready for a new fight. Mother against daughter, a legendary battle. So Yeonhwa praised her, noting that her daughter had become stronger. And in the White Lotus, she did not kick a man when he was down. Enlan confirmed that she trained hard so that she would no longer be considered a nobody. Her mother suggested that she return to the Seoul family and train properly. But Yonglan, continuing to fight back, did not understand why her mother had become so strong. Seo Yeonhwa noticed her abrupt, almost barbaric movements, and told her to watch her language, since she only wanted victory. Arin, watching the fight with Kim Joo-hyuk, asked if they should call the instructor since the head of the Seoul family was causing a stir in Valhalla, trying to take his daughter away. Kim Joo-hyuk asked how she thought the instructor would react, and Arin admitted that the reaction would be negative. She expressed her dislike for Seo Yeonhwa, accusing her of abandoning her daughter and now daring to call herself a mother. Arin sympathized with Enlan, understanding how uncomfortable she must be. Seo Yeonhwa, meanwhile, urged her daughter to stop her senseless rebellion, threatening to hurt her. Enlan, becoming even more angry, declared that she was ready to respond in kind. The mother, knowing that she had hit her hard, told her not to pretend that it didn't hurt. Suddenly, Yenlan felt that her leg was cold and she couldn't move. Seo Yeonhwa asked if this was the first time she had seen such power, and explained that it was a gift from their family's constellation, the King of the Snowy Depths. If Enlan returns to her family, she will eventually be able to form a contract with this constellation and use its power. Enlan, amazed, noticed that her mother had become stronger since their last meeting, and now understood the source of her power. Seo Yeonhwa asked if she thought this was permanent, explaining that this was the nature of their world. The patronage of a constellation gives strength, but requires understanding. She extended her hand again, asking if her daughter would return to the family. Enlan refused, screaming. The mother, sighing heavily, called her an immature child and threatened that she would not return safe and sound. Seo Yeonhwa pounced on her daughter, whose leg remained frozen, rendering her unable to fight back. The mother declared that she would freeze and crush her right hand if Yonglan did not repeat that she would never challenge the constellation and the family again. At this moment, Kim Joo-hyuk decided to intervene in the fight. Seo Yeon-hwa, the head of the Seoul family, coldly replied that she was only teaching her daughter a lesson and that it was none of the teacher's business. She noted with interest that she had used the Snow Depths King's spell on him, but his foot had not frozen as expected. Moreover, she suddenly felt pain even though she hadn't felt anything before, which meant that even her attack, enhanced by the constellation, was unable to harm Kim Joo-hyuk. He wasted no time in ordering Aaron to guard Enlan and stay behind while he sorted things out. Enlan, indignant, shouted whether he had gone crazy, since she herself wanted to fight. Seo Yeon-hwa stated that it was their family matter, but Kim Joo-hyuk pointed to Yeon-lan's frozen leg, asking what other family matter she meant. He stressed that no teacher would stand aside when his student was threatened and asked Yonglan not to interfere. This satisfied her and she retreated. Seo Yeon-hwa, mockingly noticing his tracksuit, asked if her daughter's teacher really went to school dressed like that, and reminded him that he didn't like Yeon-lan at first. She asked why he now called himself her mentor. Kim Joo-hyuk responded that it was a matter of mutual interest, not personal sympathy. Surprised, Seo Yeon-hwa decided to test his competence and attacked. Although she appeared level-headed, her actions betrayed the same impulsiveness as her daughter. Kim Joo-hyuk, who had previously blocked her attack, realized that he couldn't absorb that much magical power every time. He dodged, aiming for her joints, but Seo Yeon-hwa, using the power of the constellation, froze everything around without direct contact, preventing him from getting close. Her fighting style was so refined that it seemed like she didn't even hit someone who was down. Kim Joo-hyuk, with a slight mockery, stated that the sports equipment was the pride of Valhalla Academy and demanded that she pay compensation for the damage. Seo Yeon-hwa agreed, but only if he wins. She attacked him in the chest, and Kim Joo-hyuk realized that dodging would only provoke more ice blasts. Her magical power, fueled by the constellation, was many times greater than normal. Deciding not to waste his energy, he kicked upwards, sending a blast of ice towards the ceiling. They continued fighting, and Kim Joo-hyuk, with a series of precise punches, knocked Seo Yeon-hwa down. Her constellation did not help, and she, amazed, understood why he called himself Teacher Yen-lan. However, she insisted that she would take her daughter home, as the order of the constellation required it, and if she failed, others would take her place. Enlan, confused, asked if anyone would take her wishes into account. So Yeon-hwa coldly replied that the master's order came first. That was the tenet of their family. Enlan, in a panic, screamed that she did not want to fight again and return to her family, becoming hysterical. Kim Joo-hyuk approached Seo Yeon-hwa and asked what she needed to do to meet her co-star, since her place would be taken by others anyway. He suggested that it was enough to defeat the king of the snowy depths. Seo Yeon-hwa, not believing that he was serious, explained that ordinary people needed sanctification, which required enormous magical power, and their family would not allow someone like him, who was a threat, to carry it out. Kim Joo-hyuk countered that there was another way. Through the sacred relic, one could communicate with the constellation via neurons. So Yeon-hwa, amazed by his knowledge, asked how he knew about the relic, since this knowledge is not for ordinary hunters. She confirmed that the relic is a bridge into the pleroma of the mental image, where the power of the constellation is limitless and the human essence cannot withstand it, disintegrating into atoms. She asked if he was willing to take the risk, and Kim Joo-hyuk confirmed it. Seo Yeon-hwa, still skeptical, said that the relic would not be entrusted to him just like that, and the invitation would be sent in a week, guaranteeing Yeonlan's safety until then. Kim Ju-hyuk agreed, but Seo Yeonhwa warned him that if he got lost in the pleroma, his fate would be unenviable. He offered a deal. If he lost, his life was in her hands. But if the constellation won, she would stop calling herself Yonglan's mother and leave her alone. So Yeonhwa, after thinking about it, agreed and left the room. A week later, Kim Ju-hyuk stood before the king of the snow depths. A few days earlier, at the Valhalla dorm, Kim Ju-hyuk came into the room and invited Yeonlan to settle in, noting that she could live there. The girl, delighted by the luxurious appearance of the hostel, compared it to a rich family home and asked whether she could really stay. Kim Ju-hyuk confirmed, explaining that he had originally planned to move into a premium room and that the square footage was allocated to him. Yeonlan, realizing the situation, asked why he cared so much about her when it was none of her family's business. And was he really willing to go that far for the sake of his students? He explained that her status as a student was only one of the reasons. The main thing is that he hates people like Seo Yeonhwa, who, under the guise of hierarchy, threatened to cut off his hand, and he is sick of their kingdom, so he intervened. And Lan, slightly embarrassed, admitted that no one had ever stood up for her before, and thanked him. Kim Ju-hyuk chuckled and warned her that the upcoming training would make her regret her words of gratitude, and asked about her family's constellation, calling it the King of the Gentle Depths. And Lan corrected him that it was the King of the Snowy Depths, but her knowledge of him was limited. He commanded ice, but never interfered in the family's affairs, and many of its members did not even know who he was. Kim Ju-hyuk noted that this was strange because Seo Yeonhwa mentioned that the constellation ordered Yonglan to be taken away. She replied that she had never had contact with him and had not received the promised protection of the constellation, which was her birthright. He thoughtfully declared that he was ready to knock the crap out of him and have a heart-to-heart talk. But for now, he told her to rest and come to her senses, since soon she would have to show the way to the Seoul family. And Lan, remaining in the room, smiled. Meanwhile, Kim Ju-hyuk called Adelia, who asked how she could help. He asked her to deal with the destroyed equipment in the Valhalla gym because he had a quarrel with Seo Yeonhwa, the head of the Seoul family, who came to get her daughter. Adelia, surprised, clarified that Matriarch Seoul was at the university and asked if anything else was needed. Kim Ju-hyuk asked if she knew about the Seoul family's constellation. Adelia replied that, like Mrs. Mask and Beak, the King of the Snowy Depths does not interfere in family affairs, and there is little information about him. He also asked if Dorinda had woken up, but Adelia said that she had not, and that the sanctification was greatly depleting the constellations, making even constellation gatherings rare. She asked Kim Ju-hyuk to put in a good word for her with their co-star, but upon noticing his silence, she apologized and hung up. Kim Ju-hyuk, not understanding why no one knew anything, suddenly heard Barcha. The demon noticed that asking questions was not his style. He usually acted first and figured things out later. Barch warned that despite his progress, Kim Ju-hyuk was still far from his previous level, and attacking a constellation without knowing anything about it was foolish, especially in the pleroma of the mental image, where constellations could easily defeat him. Kim Ju-hyuk asked why Barche was so weak in this dimension despite his power. The demon explained that in the pleroma, strength depends on one's self-image, not on actual power. And for him, as for ordinary people, there is no difference, but Kim Ju-hyuk is different. Barch advised to remember this. A week later, Kim Ju-hyuk arrived in China, at the Seoul family estate. Seo Yeonhwa, meeting him, was surprised but slightly flattered by his arrival. He asked how he could not show up and asked if they had received permission. She ordered him to follow her, leaving Yeonlan behind. Seo Yeonhwa led him to a strange space, where she dug through the snow and pulled out a box. She asked him if he wanted to become a slave to their family if he lost, but he replied that she would come up with the punishment herself and demanded the glove. She took it out, and Kim Joo-hyuk found himself in front of the king of the snow depths on an icy throne. The constellation, not recognizing him, asked who he was, but noted that he seemed to be a great nuisance to the Sol family, and prepared to take revenge. The king attacked with an ice blast from afar, but Kim Joo-hyuk dodged it. The constellation, who did not expect that such an attack could be avoided with a simple jump, acknowledged its strength, since even magical defense would not be enough. The king of the snow depths, noticing that Kim Joo-hyuk was no ordinary opponent, decided to introduce himself, even though his real name was lost when he was locked in the Golden Place. He suggested calling him by the nickname known among the constellations. Some followers called him the God of Chaos. Others, who feared him, the Snow Demon. Combining these titles, he called himself the Snow God of Chaos, patron of the Sol family. Kim Joo-hyuk, with a slight chuckle, introduced himself in response, and the Snow God, having remembered his name, promised that it would stay with him. Concentrating his magical power in his hand, he began to attack, raining ice blocks down on Kim Joo-hyuk from all sides. The hero, realizing that running away was not his style, fought off the icicles that fell around him. He realized that he couldn't stop them with his bare hands, so he grabbed his sword and counterattacked. However, his blow was reflected by a wall of ice. The snow god, surprised, noted that Kim Joo-hyuk was able to touch the ice despite its extreme cold, because everything in this space, ice and snow, was under his control. He found it funny, but Kim Joo-hyuk, ignoring the mockery, continued to fight, gradually approaching his opponent. The snow god realized that the hero was trying to confuse him in order to get closer. A cunning plan. But in his opinion, Kim Joo-hyuk lacked strength. With these words, he delivered a powerful punch to the snow god's stomach, sending him flying to the other end of the hall. Kim Joo-hyuk sarcastically noted that it looked like the enemy hadn't been sent flying for a long time. The snow god, shocked, acknowledged the incredible power of the blow, and, looking at Kim Joo-hyuk's sword, guessed that the one in front of him was the god of war. The hero confirmed that this nickname was given to him by his students, and the snow god was right. He, still recovering from the blow, said that he did not know Kim Joo-hyuk closely, but 300 years ago he himself witnessed his power. Then, in the battle against the horde of monsters, the snow god, despite his abilities, found himself alone against a countless army. He was going to take as many enemies with him as possible, but suddenly the god of war appeared. The snow god wanted to ask why he came to his aid and why he fought so fearlessly. But when Kim Joo-hyuk swung his ink-black sword, the monsters disappeared, and the two of them were left alone. The snow god was speechless, overwhelmed by the magical power that could not be confused. He realized that before him was undoubtedly the god of war. Kim Joo-hyuk, with a slight smile, asked if it was time for him to start the attack. The snow god, inspired, replied that he had been waiting for this day for a long time and was ready to fight with all his might, letting the god of war decide how to continue the fight. Both opponents, having recognized each other, prepared for a furious fight in the pleroma of the mental image, where their forces and determination would clash in full force. In the reception room of the Sol family's estate, Yonglan sat alone, feeling terrified under the gaze of people watching her through the bars like an animal in a cage. Those looks reminded her why she didn't want to return to the Sol family. Remembering Kim Joo-hyuk's words about how she needed to rest and recover in order to show him the way to his family, she realized that without his request, she would never have returned here. Suddenly, Sol Yurin, the first daughter of the Sol family, and Sol Pei, her younger sister, approached her, and Lan, alert, asked what they wanted. Solpei explained that they weren't looking for a fight, since they couldn't defeat her, but simply wanted to talk. Enlan sarcastically suggested that they join the onlookers behind bars, but Sol Yurin gently objected, saying that she had come to apologize for the misunderstanding. She wanted to make amends, and Solpei added that after the fight at Bakran Castle, they hadn't had a chance to talk normally, and they wanted to fix it now, even if it was late. Yanlan, in disbelief, asked if she should consider their apologies to be sincere and not dictated by fear. She started screaming, but Sol Yurin tried to calm her down, acknowledging that their actions might look like an attempt to get away with it. She said that their mother, So Yeonhwa, blocked all of the sisters' attempts to meet with Yeonlan and even suspended her from training. Enlan, surprised, realized that her expulsion was not out of jealousy as she thought. Solpei admitted that there was envy, but it was kind. They were proud of Yanlan, because thanks to her, the Sol family is taken seriously. However, their mother forbade them from communicating, declaring Yanlan a threat in the struggle for the place of head of the family. The elders, she said, would have chosen Yanlan over the sisters, and they submitted and agreed with her decision. Solpei clarified that they were never interested in the role of the leader and did not want to take that position. At that moment, So Yeonhwa entered the room, asking if Yeonlan wanted to know the details. Meanwhile, in the pleroma of the mental image, Kim Ju-hyuk continued his battle with the snow god of chaos. The constellation attacked him with ice blocks and icicles from all sides, which incredibly irritated the hero. He asked whether the enemy was going to continue playing with icicles. The snow god accepted the challenge and replied that since Kim Ju-hyuk wanted a stronger attack, he would get it. He unleashed a powerful blast of ice that was supposed to freeze the hero from head to toe. Kim Ju-hyuk, impressed but dodging, noticed that the attack only lightly dusted him with snow, as expected from the god of war. He asked with a slight mockery not to shower the enemy with compliments, as it embarrasses him, but admitted that the snow god stands out among the other constellations. He suggested that 300 years ago he had tried to limit his power in the pleroma, where, as Barcho explained, everything depended on the idea of one's own power. The snow god was likely a reincarnation of his former self, whose body had long since decayed, making him an interesting opponent. Kim Ju-hyuk lamented that he wished he had met him earlier and described their exchange of compliments as mutual. The snow god, coming closer, declared that in gratitude for the fight, he would give himself completely, and created a giant ice hand to attack. Kim Ju-hyuk swung his ink sword and instantly cut it down, and the snow god collapsed, admitting that he wasn't even close to being his equal. Seo Yeonhwa, watching the fight in the pleroma of the mental image, was amazed that Kim Ju-hyuk lasted so long against the king of the snow depths. She noticed that he was using unusual magic, which was probably what allowed the constellation to play with him for so long. However, she was surprised that after such a long battle in the pleroma, Kim Ju-hyuk looked completely normal. When she turned to him, she learned that he had defeated the snow god of chaos. Seo Yeonhwa, not believing her ears, asked again, but a notification popped up in front of her. The king of the snow depths, thanks Kim Ju-hyuk. Shocked, she called it unthinkable. A high school student had defeated their patron constellation. Kim Ju-hyuk suggested that she ask the snow god herself, noting that he seemed to respect him. Walking up to Seo Yeonhwa and placing his hand on her shoulder, he reminded her of their agreement. She promised to leave Yeonlan alone. He added that he would make some adjustments to her plans. Kim Ju-hyuk entered the room where Yeonlan was with her sisters and mother. Seeing So Yeon, the chairman of the White Lotus, he was surprised by her presence, not expecting to meet her here. Enlan, noticing him, asked if he had finished his business. He confirmed, offering to tell him the details on the way home, as the eyes on the estate were too intense. They left the estate, and Yen Lan, still excited, noted that he returned faster than she expected. She assumed that he had lost, since it was incredibly difficult to fight a constellation without divine protection, and asked what condition So Yeonhwa had put forward, to become a slave of the Sol family? Kim Joo-hyuk, smiling at her naivety, reassured her, but Yeon Lan continued to worry, certain that she should have stopped him. She said that her aunt and older sister told her about So Yeonhwa. She had been striving for power since her youth, and, even after becoming the head of the family, did not slow down. She disliked children, seeing them as a threat to her position, especially Yong Lan due to her talent, and punished them for the slightest misdeeds. And Lan noted bitterly that she never wanted to be the head, and she didn't understand why her mother treated her like that. She was surprised that the constellation did nothing against So Yeonhwa, even if Barshe thought her actions were unfair. Kim Joo-hyuk interrupted her, saying that she was a master of drama, and decided to make her happy. He defeated the snow god. Yen Lan, in disbelief, asked if he was playing a joke on her, but he assured her that it was not an April Fool's joke. He explained that the conflict began because the constellation called Seo Yeonhwa on the carpet. Kim Joo-hyuk personally asked the snow god why he needed Yeon Lan. The constellation replied that it was So Yeonhwa's request. Her youngest daughter needed divine protection, but stubbornly refused it, and so it gave the order to take her away. Kim Joo-hyuk, surprised, noticed that the snow god seemed to have heard for the first time that the youngest daughter was named Yeon Lan, and did not even know that she was abandoned. The hero explained to the constellation that So Yeonhwa had been manipulating the family and the snow god himself all this time, using his power for her own selfish purposes. She lied, ruined Yen Lan's life, and deceived the elders, having nothing sacred. Kim Joo-hyuk asked the snow god to terminate his contract with Seo Yeonhwa. At that moment, she received a notification. The contract with the king of the snowy depths was terminated, and her power disappeared. Having lost her position as head, she lost even the slightest influence. Kim Joo-hyuk noted that he didn't have to get his hands dirty. Yong Lan, shocked, couldn't believe that he did this for her and thanked him, but he asked her to stop, because now that the Sol family was over, she could focus on training. Meanwhile, the man in the skull mask who was watching them asked his master if he should continue watching. The master replied that no, and ordered them to look for his enemies. The great cult's hideout has gathered its members under the orders of the Constellation Lord, who has ordered the death of Kim Joo-hyuk. However, the masked man, who was the first to arrive after receiving the order, was puzzled as to why the constellation suddenly became interested in Kim Joo-hyuk's enemies when it had previously demanded his elimination. He made inquiries, but found only scant information. Kim Joo-hyuk grew up in an orphanage, and nothing else of note. The information was reliable but useless. The masked man waited for the order to liquidate, but it never came. After Kim Joo-hyuk defeated So Yeonhwa and her constellation, the king of the snowy depths, the order was postponed. The cult received a new order that left them shocked. Kim Joo-hyuk defeated the Sol family constellation. Suddenly, a message came from the War Devil, asking if the storage stone was ready. The cult members, having confirmed their readiness, took the stones, piled them up, and began to concentrate the energy. Mr. Constellation asked if they had found Kim Joo-hyuk's enemies. The masked man replied that 3 hostile organizations had been identified: Il Shinjo, Samsal, and the Supreme Race, all bandit groups, and the Ventric family, a prestigious English dynasty. However, the Ventrics seem to have made a deal with Kim Joo-hyuk and are now supporting him, although there is no official confirmation. Rumors are circulating that the thug organization Full Burial is targeting Kim Joo-hyuk, possibly to increase the value of his name. The cult leader announced a new order to eliminate Kim Joo-hyuk's enemies, which seemed strange to everyone. Meanwhile, Choi Arin texted Kim Joo-hyuk, saying that she would be skipping practice because she had to go home for something important. He thought it might be a sacred relic and hoped that the Choi family constellation, Choi Jin-jung, would become his disciple. After defeating the Sol family's constellation, Kim Joo-hyuk examined their relics, but none were remarkable. He knew that a new tower of destruction was coming soon, and the Zahar disaster was just around the corner, so he needed every student. The White Lotus Association, he had heard, housed many sacred relics, and he decided to take a look, although the very thought irritated him. Suddenly, a man in a mask with a cat's face appeared in front of him, a representative of the black market. Kim Joo-hyuk immediately realized who it was, but the masked man suggested that they speak outside. They left, and he explained that the black market guaranteed anonymity, but he had not been warned that people in cat masks might come to the academy. He handed over a letter from the hidden master, the true owner of the black market, and asked to see its contents. If Kim Joo-hyuk can answer, he will be awaited at the market, where the constellation of the ruler will be waiting to meet. The masked man added that the letter had been passed on to several people, and the constellation was looking for someone who could read it. Not knowing the content, he turned around and left. Barch, Kim Joo-hyuk's demon, was surprised that the letter was from a constellation and asked if he could decipher it, as the symbols resembled a child's made-up language. Kim Joo-hyuk, looking at the letter, realized that the symbols were familiar to him. He himself had created them in the past. Barsh, Kim Joo-hyuk's demon, noticed that he had been leaving Valhalla Academy without permission more often in recent days. He reminded the hero of the deal with that creepy gray-haired teacher, Lilia, who had created a sensation with her research at the last conference. Barch advised to continue to supply her with information so as not to break the agreement. The demon then asked if Kim Joo-hyuk really invented those strange scribbles in the letter. The hero confirmed that this was his creation, created in the past. Barsh, surprised, asked how this was possible if writing did not yet exist then. Kim Joo-hyuk explained that it was part of his training and went to the black market, although he didn't think he would ever return there. Looking at the sky, he noticed its unusual appearance, reminding him of the events of 300 years ago, hinting at a grand meeting. At the market, a man in a mask approached him and asked whether he had come because of the letter. Kim Joo-hyuk confirmed by asking where to go. The guide replied that the mask was not necessary and led him through a secret passage to area number 7. The hero was surprised that the black cat, the key figure of the market, was missing. But Barch pointed to a building behind glass, covered with yellow banknotes that looked like currency. The demon doubted whether this building had been here last time. Suddenly, a black cat appeared and asked if Kim Joo-hyuk was able to read the letter. He replied that it was impossible to give a specific answer to the contents of the letter and asked for a piece of paper and a pen to explain. He began to write the symbols, and the black cat, puzzled, noticed that only 5 had sold their rings, and 3 of them, by lying, had only angered the constellation. Seeing the symbols, the black cat recognized their similarity to writing, but did not understand their meaning. Kim Joo-hyuk did not explain, and the black cat, deciding that he was on the right track, suggested that they immediately meet with the constellation. The hero agreed, and the black cat handed him the staff. Upon touching it, Kim Joo-hyuk found himself in the pleroma of the mental image. There he met a girl whom he immediately recognized. It was Maniac, one of his students from a past life. She fell to her knees and greeted her teacher, calling herself his humble student. Kim Joo-hyuk, embarrassed, asked her to stand up, noting that he didn't think she remembered their symbols. The maniac was surprised how he could forget. He created them especially for her. In the past, he saved her and Dorinda from slavery, accepting them as students. At that time, she was completely unsocialized, did not know how to communicate, and her only language was emotions. To teach her, Kim Joo-hyuk came up with these symbols to instill a love for writing. This helped her master the language, and then the art of fighting. The maniac admitted that she studied for his sake, so that he would understand her letter. Reading it again, Kim Joo-hyuk saw that she had written about her longing for him and asked if they would get married when they met. He gently replied that no, and there was no time for that. The maniac was upset because she had waited for him for so long, but he explained that the world was as dangerous now as it was 300 years ago, and they needed to focus on that. She understood and sighed, but asked if he had seen a skyscraper covered in banknotes. Kim Joo-hyuk confirmed that he had noticed it, and Maniac announced that it was now his home. He, not understanding, refused, which angered her. The Maniac, enraged, attacked him, and Kim Joo-hyuk realized that no one had tamed her for a long time. Kim Joo-hyuk, looking at Maniac, remembered why he gave her that nickname. She was always uncontrollable. She, overexcited, asked why he didn't want to marry her, but he sternly told her to come to her senses and think clearly. The Maniac, surprised, asked if he really didn't like her gift, a skyscraper made of banknotes, and if she had made a mistake. Kim Joo-hyuk, slightly irritated, asked when he had ever dreamed of such a thing. She recalled that 300 years ago, he said that in peacetime he would like to drown in luxury, leaving past battles behind. But peace is still a long way off, and they need to become stronger to save their generation and allow it to finally breathe deeply. The Maniac admitted that since then, she has strived to become stronger in order to fulfill his dream. 300 years later, she had the opportunity and knew about his reincarnation thanks to the notification. Without it, she would go crazy and start losing control right before his eyes. Kim Joo-hyuk noted that the moment was not right, because now is not a peaceful time, and a new tower of destruction with the Zakharov disaster is just around the corner. The Maniac, looking down, became upset, admitting that he had only just been reborn, but already had to save the world. He confirmed that this was one of the reasons why he refused her gift. Understanding his position, Maniac asked him to extend his hand and handed him the black market owner's ring, explaining that it would make him the new owner with full access to all resources. This will make his tasks easier, and she is ready to help at any time. Kim Joo-hyuk expressed his gratitude, noting that he had been given rings too often lately and decided to return to Valhalla Academy. Meanwhile, the Black Cat received a notification from the Hidden Master asking if Kim Joo-hyuk had left. The Black Cat confirmed that he had returned to the academy. The Lord exclaimed that the academy itself should have been bought, and the Black Cat, surprised, asked if all this was really for the sake of a 17-year-old boy, who was even given the market owner's ring. He asked what connected the ruler with Kim Joo-hyuk. He replied that he was her personal paradise. At this time, Logan, the first destroyer, stormed into the black market, swinging his fists furiously and shouting that anyone who dared to touch his son must die. The masked men, stunned, did not understand why Logan was there, and assumed that he had come to avenge his son. They decided to leave Shushenru, another enemy, to him, and concentrate on their leader. Logan, hearing a whisper behind him, shouted, but saw no one. Meanwhile, Hannibal, the Dragon King and leader of Il-Shinju, found himself in a strange space after a sudden explosion. Looking around, he realized that this was not an office, but something else. Perhaps the pleroma of the mental image. Suddenly, the constellation, irritated by the beating of his heart, declared that it was unbearable and instantly blew up his heart. In the pleroma of the mental image, Hannibal, despite his heart being torn out, remained alive. The constellation Tugui, a representative of the Ilgyo clan, wearing a goat mask, assured him that he would not die in this space and confirmed that this was indeed the pleroma. Hannibal, stunned, did not understand what was happening and was struck by Tugui's incredible magical power. He heard a noise outside. Members of his clan were under attack. Hannibal asked why they were targeted. Tugui explained that this was the work of Logan, the first destroyer, who was avenging his son. Hannibal, realizing that Logan was there, realized that the chances were slim. But Tugui warned that things were even worse. He asked if Hannibal knew why Kim Ju-hyuk was called one of the strongest. Tugui said his mission was to cleanse the world of those whose minds are clouded by pride, those who consider themselves better than others. Hannibal, not understanding, asked why the previous first was killed then. Tugui replied that he was a non-entity whose strength was limited to empty conceit. Hannibal replied that he did not consider himself the strongest and did not understand why he was here. Tugui clarified that it was not about him personally, but his clan made a mistake by raising a hand against the one who deserved the title of the strongest, Kim Ju-hyuk. A powerful aura began to form around Tugui, and Hannibal, realizing the threat, realized that now was not the time to think. We need to conserve our strength to survive against this crazy saint. He decided to use the relic of their constellation's magic to strike and find a way out. Hannibal concentrated his aura into his hand and attacked, but Tugui easily dodged it, appearing behind him. Hannibal, not feeling the presence of the enemy, was confused. Is it really true that there are no limits in the pleroma? And can Tugui so easily hide his power? The constellation, appearing behind them again, declared that Kim Ju-hyuk was the strongest teacher, and that Tugui would take revenge for them raising their hand against him. He struck out, piercing Hannibal through the stomach. Tugui stressed that he would not kill him so easily, leaving him to suffer. The next morning, in the Valhalla dorm, Kim Ju-hyuk woke up to see news reports on the Ilshinjo, Samsal, and Ilgyo clan gangs being defeated. Barch, surprised, noted that this was strange. It seemed that the problem of Kim Ju-hyuk's enemies had resolved itself. He asked if the hero really planned to leave the academy. Kim Ju-hyuk confirmed that Valhalla was just a resource for him, and he came here for other purposes. Now that the conditions are met, he has no reason to stay, but he will only leave after another disaster. Barsh, puzzled, remained silent. At this time, a black cat appeared in the office of the chairman of Valhalla Academy, Shim Dokwoon, introducing himself as the owner of the black market. He got straight to the point, asking to sell him the academy. Shim Dokwoon, stunned, demanded an explanation, but the black cat insisted that this was an order from the hidden master, and the academy must come under their control. Shim Dokwoon, the chairman of Valhalla Academy, asked the black cat in confusion if he really was the owner of the black market. He confirmed, noting that she seemed to know what market she was talking about. However, Shim Dokwoon firmly stated that he would not sell the academy to a dubious person despite his reputation. The black cat, slightly surprised, snapped his fingers, and a suitcase filled with money appeared in front of her. But the chairman remained adamant, explaining that it was not about money. He told how, as a youth, as a hunter in Korea, he saw how the country suffered from labyrinths and monsters. Regular police could deal with human crimes, but guilds were needed against monsters. The government created a division of contractors, but they accepted just anyone and were no match for the elite hunters. Shim Dokwoon then decided to establish an academy to train contractors who would be equal to those from abroad. Valhalla is functioning successfully. Its graduates are in demand all over the world, and the academy has set a record for the speed of response to threats. He asked if the black cat understood what he was talking about. He, impressed, acknowledged his merits, but assured that he did not intend to change the academy's policy, only to become its new owner. He snapped his fingers again, and 2 suitcases of money appeared, then a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh, and so on. Shim Dokwoon finally agreed to the deal, asking him to take care of the academy, and retired with relief. The black cat, having become the new owner of Valhalla, decided to change the sign and informed his master, Maniac, that he had fulfilled her request by acquiring the academy. She ordered the black market to be connected to Valhalla and additional surveillance cameras to be installed to see who was flirting with her teacher. The black cat was surprised because there were already enough cameras, but the maniac insisted on her own, being excited about the opportunity to spy on Kim Joo-hyuk. Meanwhile, Barch noticed that the academy was in a state of unrest and asked Kim Joo-hyuk if the commotion bothered him. The hero waved it off, asking the demon not to push things, but admitted that he felt overloaded. At that moment, Aaron approached him. He asked, with a slight mockery, if she had returned from her nest. Aaron replied that she had been there since the morning and was surprised that he hadn't noticed, to which he joked that he had been sleeping. She suggested going to the gym to show him something. In the hall where their students had gathered, Aaron took out a weapon that emitted powerful magical power. She explained that it was her family's heirloom, the Blue Moon Radiance, which she had taken from her hometown. So Yeon, amazed, asked where she got such a relic, since high school students are rarely trusted with such things. Aaron said that she passed the family tests and became the legal heir. So Yeon, still surprised, noted that her father had apparently given his approval. Aaron asked Kim Joo-hyuk if she could train with him now using the relic. He replied that it was her decision, but asked her to touch the sword. So Yeon was indignant, calling the relic an intimate family item, but Aaron allowed the teacher to take the sword. Kim Joo-hyuk, feeling the familiar magical power, immediately remembered Choi Jin-jong, the patron constellation of Daowang, who said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Choi Jin-jong, the patron constellation of Daowang, called Kim Joo-hyuk Hyung-oh-hyung, to which Kim Joo-hyuk responded in surprise, calling him boy. Jin-jong was indignant, asking how much longer they would call him that, since he had already grown up. He wondered how Kim Joo-hyuk knew his name if he never said it. The hero, smiling, replied that he would still call him a boy, because all his students eventually became constellations, and Jin-jong was always a fidget. Remembering him as a child, Kim Joo-hyuk called him the King of Blades and challenged him to a fight. Jin-jong, inspired, declared that he wanted to test his strength against the strongest and asked for a fight. He revealed that monsters killed his family because they were weak, and he strives to become stronger so that no one else has to go through the same thing. Kim Joo-hyuk, calling him a dreamer, advised him to hold the sword correctly, but agreed to fight. Jin-jong, attacking with his fists, declared that he would not give in, remembering how his teacher forced him to take up the sword every week. He asked with slight resentment if Kim Joo-hyuk had never been able to give in, to which he was surprised, because it was defeats that tempered his technique, turning him into an invincible swordsman. Kim Joo-hyuk offered to become his student to constantly monitor his progress, but Jin-jong replied that it would be blasphemous to appropriate his technique. He admitted that he had no other choice to become stronger. Kim Joo-hyuk realized that Jin-jong had grown up and felt nostalgia coming from Aaron, whose education was similar to their past. Jin-jong said that after becoming a constellation, he taught contractors his sword technique, but adapted it since modern fighters rely on magical power rather than physical strength. Although his technique was still far from perfect, he was surprised to see a teacher in the body of a high school student. Kim Joo-hyuk asked if he received the notification about his reincarnation as maniac and fool. Jin-jong replied that nothing had happened, and this seemed strange to the hero. Barch confirmed that he had seen the notice as well, and Kim Joo-hyuk suggested that they were only sent to those who were connected to him. Jin-jong called it fate and suggested crossing swords. Kim Joo-hyuk agreed, wanting to test how much stronger he had become. During the battle, memories came flooding back to the hero when he touched Aaron's relic, the Blue Moon Radiance, which was linked to Jin-jong. After the defeat, Jin-jong was pleased and Kim Joo-hyuk advised Arin to contact her co-star more often, calling him a good guy. Meanwhile, in China, at the Sol family estate, So Yeon, the chairwoman of the White Lotus Association, approached the elders, asking why she had been summoned. The three elders were silent, and she reminded them that the position of head of the family was still vacant. They offered her the position, but So Yeon pointed out that, according to tradition, the association's leader could not apply for the role. The elders asked to name a candidate who would not use the power of the constellation for personal gain, like So Yeon-hwa. So Yeon, after thinking about it, suggested Yong-lan, confident that she would become a worthy leader.